When Sayok entered the Hunter Academy tournament, he shocked one of the strongest hunters in the world. The moment the matches began, everyone realized something was terribly wrong. One after another, the students rushed at him with all the techniques they had trained for, only to get beaten down with nothing but his bare hands. No flashy skill, no special weapon, just perfect timing and overwhelming strength. Even the officials and the guild scouts watching from above could not believe what they were seeing. And when Sayok reached the final and crushed the academy's top student, the entire arena was thrown into chaos. Just when everyone thought the tournament was over, Lee Se-yoon herself stepped onto the stage. A world-ranked hunter, a monster compared to ordinary students. Unlike the others, she immediately understood that Sayok was hiding something far more dangerous than brute force. Their fight pushed Sayok harder than anyone else had. His body slowed down. His breathing grew heavy. Fatigue began to drag him down. And that was when Sayok finally revealed the terrifying power he had kept hidden. He ignited his black flame, not to burn his enemy, but to burn the very concept of fatigue itself. In an instant, his exhausted body came back to life. His speed returned. And for the first time, even Lee Se-yoon was forced to realize that the man standing before her was no normal rookie. So how did this guy become so strong? It all begins with our MC, Hyun Sayok, narrating how he found himself in another world, which he is requested to say. After 20 years in this new world, he finds himself going up against the boss monster alongside 3 of his colleagues. A saintess, a mage, and a knight. The boss monster commends Sayok, telling him that he has put up a really good fight for someone who is known to be a hero. Sayok teases him right back, saying he is not looking too good either. The boss monster can't take a joke, and this pisses him off really bad, and he lunges at Sayok with a powerful slash. However, Sayok blocks his attack with his spear, leaving a loud clashing sound. Meanwhile, the mage is trying to support from behind, and the boss monster threatens to tear Sayok apart if he refuses to submit to him. The monster boasts that the land they are in is a kingdom forged by his teeth and claws. The two continue swinging at each other, delivering powerful attacks, but Sayok soon gets tired of it all, and decides that it is time to end the battle. He powers up his spear with a skill called the Paradox Flame, and lands his attack on the boss. This results in a massive explosion that sends the monster flying into the distance, destroying boulders in the process. The two resume their brutal exchange of blows, making the others on the scene look like babies. Sayok manages to land a hit on the monster, but it boasts about how it is nothing to him because the attack is too soft. However, Sayok soon lets him know how much it can cut down his arrogance. With his spear engulfed in flames, Sayok delivers a cut to the monster's body, and this time, the monster realizes how screwed he is. He crashes to the ground with the flames burning away his body. The monster commends Sayok, saying he never knew there would be someone strong enough to cut him down, and Sayok lets him know that he is not from their trash world. The boss doesn't believe this, as he assumes that Sayok is just saying nonsense. Nonetheless, he is convinced that his body will be absorbed into the land, and one day, he will be resurrected. Suddenly, he notices that he is being erased, and Sayok teases him, asking him if he finally understands the situation. Sayok tells him that the black flame burning him is his special ability, which he named Paradox Flame. He mentions that, unlike normal flames that burn using oxygen, it uses abstract concepts as fuel. Sayok tells the monster that he might have been able to resurrect himself countless times in the future. But the flame that is currently burning him is going to prevent him from ever doing that again because his existence is being erased. The boss monster then tries to mock Sayok, telling him that he might have killed him. But he is never going to be remembered as the hero who saved the world, because the people he believes to be his colleagues are just waiting for him to die in the battle. Sayok replies, saying he already knows that. The saintess quickly cuts in, telling Sayok that he can't believe the words of a monster. However, Sayok starts with the saintess herself, saying she has been claiming that she loves him, but in reality, she despises him for being an outsider. Apparently, all of her attempts at seduction were part of the plan, so that when the time finally came to subjugate him, he would find it hard to attack her. The saintess is shocked when she realizes that Sayok is actually right. Sayok continues by saying he is aware that the mage and knight are just like her. It turns out that the knight has already received a national treasure from the emperor, which is a reward for after he kills Sayok. Apparently, the emperor was scared that Sayok was going to take his throne. As for the mage, he loves human experimentation, and he hates Sayok because he opposes the slavery system. Sayok tells them that he has already known all these facts for the past 5 years. The monster is shocked to hear this, and he asks Sayok why he doesn't just conquer the world with his power. Sayok reveals that he has no interest in doing this because he just wants to return home. Apparently, 20 years ago, in the year 2005, Sayok was an ordinary 20-year-old, until he was transported into this world by a goddess. The goddess tells Sayok that he is being transported into this world to save it. By the time Sayok arrived in this world, he realized that it was a hellhole. Sayok tried everything he could to return home, but the goddess tells him that he has to defeat the monsters and save the world. Since there was only one way to get back to Earth, Sayok started training to fight against monsters. Narrating just how messed up this world was. He once rescued a child from the battlefront. But the soldiers won't let him into the village. They tell him to let the boy die because it appears that he is about to. This turned out to be a damned world that would choose to abandon the wounded, rather than rescue them. As if this isn't worse enough, their whack levels of medicine and hygiene makes things even worse. At one point, they even amputated a soldier's leg for a simple infection. Even though he managed to get the child into the village, Sayok faced another problem, which was the religious fanatics. The religious leaders in the village assumed that the child was able to survive because a demon possessed him. They suggested that they exorcise him with fire, since they were already carrying out an exorcism. As if it is nothing, the dudes are burning away people like firewood. Sayok is totally left in shock because he can't believe that he managed to find himself in a world with no concept of human rights. Even with this, Sayok managed to survive for the next 20 years, and now, he has finally defeated the monster to save the world. Sayok is relieved that it is finally over, and the knight prepares to attack Sayok, telling him that he is glad that he knows that they can't let him live. Sayok turns to the dude, letting him know that he really hates their world. At this point, even the knight knows that he doesn't really have what it takes to fight Sayok. He realizes that they basically created a monster to tame another monster. Just then, Sayok looks into the sky and screams out to the goddess, telling her to keep her promise because he already saved the world, just like she said. Suddenly, the sky opens up and the goddess appears, commending him for enduring so much. However, Sayok is not ready for her accolades and reminds her of her promise to send him back to Earth. The goddess asks Sayok if he really doesn't like this world, even though he has gained so much power to even be a threat to her. She lets him know that if he returns to Earth, all of his achievements as a hero will be for naught. Sayok tells the goddess to stop messing around because he is sure she is happy that he is leaving, and the goddess agrees with him, saying the world no longer needs a monster. However, she asks him if he won't regret his decision to go back, and Sayok tells her that the only thing he desires is to return to the world he once knew. Sayok is already tired of this world that has taken him through hell, and the goddess grants his wish. A bright golden light covers Sayok, and the goddess tells Sayok that his physical body on Earth has perished, which is why she is going to place his soul into a new vessel. Sayok is shocked to hear this, and he asks the goddess who he is going to be. The goddess lets him know that she cannot explain to him in detail, but she lets him know that it is a body fated for a wretched end. Nonetheless, she is pretty sure that he is going to survive, since that is what he is good at. Sayok tells the goddess that he doesn't really care because as long as he returns to Earth, he will surely survive compared to what he has faced in his trash world. Soon afterward, Sayok opens his eyes in his new body. And he is now in the year 2025. It turns out that he has entered the body of a civilian named Chan Suk. Sayok stands up from the bed with the relief that he no longer has to see the traitors who want to kill him. He then spots a mirror in the room. And he walks up to the mirror to check out his new appearance. This is when it finally dawns on him that he is back on Earth. He looks around the room to see that there is clean water for him to use, unlike in the trash world where he is coming from. Even fire is easy to make instead of chopping wood like a maniac. Sayok celebrates because this is what he has been missing, and he even finds a box of chicken on the table. Without hesitation, he grabs the chicken, and just a taste of it sends him crazy with excitement. He cries tears of joy because he can finally taste food again after so many years of hell. While he is celebrating his arrival on Earth, he fails to notice a bright red light appearing in the middle of the street. Since Earth is currently in the year 2025, he realizes that this world and the world where he was taken follow the same time flow. However, he is not really concerned about this because no matter how difficult and hard the Earth is, he believes that it will never be as bad as the other world from which he just came back. After he is done eating, Sayok steps into the bathroom to have a warm shower and enjoy the benefits of technology with the AC afterwards. He walks to the window to stare into the clear sky, trying to take in everything he has missed all at once. He is thinking of what to do with his life when an ugly-looking monster appears on the window staring down at Sayok. Sayok screams out in fear, wondering what he is looking at. Just then, a public announcement echoes through the area, telling all residents that a corrosion rift has appeared within the apartment complex. Sayok is totally confused about what they are talking about on the PA system. The announcer continues by urging all residents to evacuate to the underground shelter with immediate effect. Sayok remains startled until he notices that the entire window is now covered in monsters that are trying to get into the house. Sayok snaps into reality when the window breaks and the monsters make their way into the building. Sayok makes a run for it while wondering what the monsters are as they chase after him. Sayok's smartness saves him as he leaps through a window and hides on the ledge to wait for the monsters to pass by. Once they are gone, he climbs back and heaves a sigh of relief that he has finally lost the monsters. Suddenly, he spots a kid in the distance and he rushes over to the young lad, asking him what he is doing in such a dangerous place. He suggests that they rush back to the shelter, but the kid is more concerned about the monster that he saw earlier because he is interested in killing it. He asks Sayok if he is interested in coming with him, and Sayok stares at him in disgust, wondering what the hell the dude is saying. It turns out that Earth has been this way for 13 years. Since the kid is refusing to go to the shelter, Sayok has no choice but to follow him, and he ends up tagging along with the kid. The kid then explains to him that a corrosion rift is an opening where monsters come out from. And no one knows why they form or when and where they will appear. After hearing this, Sayok starts to think about how he went through hell and the other world just to return to Earth to find it in a horrible state too. The kid is surprised that he has to explain things to Sayok, and he asks him why he doesn't know. Sayok lies that he was living in America, but this only stirs up another controversy since people can't cross over from the US to Korea. The kid stares at Sayok in such a confusing way because he has no idea what he is even talking about. Sayok manages to change the topic of discussion away from him, and he asks the kid about the hunter he said he likes. The kid replies that her name is Lee Son. The boy mentions that Son is in the Janabi Guild, and she is ranked 10th on Earth. Apparently, her main weapon is a great sword, and she is currently in Chirwan dealing with a corrosion rift. With the way the boy is spilling everything he knows about Son, Sayok can only heave a sigh of relief that he was able to change the topic away from himself. However, he still can't wrap his head around the fact that there is a normal human fighting a monster just like the other world he came from. The dude is still counting out everything Sayok needs to know when Sayok suddenly covers his mouth, telling him to stop yapping. They take a peek around the corner to see 5 monsters in the distance. However, Suk is able to figure out that there is one monster hiding, which makes them 6 in total. Suk is thankful that the body he found himself in has some level of physical strength. Since he is used to fighting multiple enemies, Suk thinks to himself that taking on the monsters is not going to be an issue. However, the problem is the kid with him, and just when he turns around to look at the dude, he is already shaking. Suk cannot believe that all of his determination to kill monsters has disappeared after coming face to face with one. Suk remains confused about what to do since he has no weapon with him. But suddenly he notices the presence of mana in the air. The moment he confirms that it is the same as in the other world, Suk decides to attack the monsters. He steps out of his hiding place and hits one of them with the paradox flame. Suk is thankful that he can still have the skill that was engraved in his soul in the other world. Even though the firepower is not as he expects, he believes that it is more than enough for what he wants to do. The monster's head burns off in agonizing pain, and the kid commends Suk, telling him that what he did was amazing. He immediately addresses Suk as his master, saying he has a unique skill, and Suk figures out that rare techniques are considered unique on Earth. The monster is still burning down when the dude decides that he needs to confirm the kill. He rushes over to where the flame is still at, while Suk tries to warn him not to get near the flames until the target is dead. Just as he is about to get hurt, Suk steps in like Superman, blocking the flames with his own hands, getting injured in the process. Suk urges the kid to stop watching things online, because reality is apparently different from movies. Suk then borrows the staff that he is holding, using it to cut down the monsters lunging toward them. Suk does this so efficiently, as if he is using a real sword, leaving the boy totally amazed by what he is watching. He commends Suk, asking him if he is a secret hunter. Suk, on the other hand, is not entirely pleased with how his new life, because he is basically back to the life he was trying to escape from. Moments later, they arrive at the and Suk decides to start calling the kid a brat, instead of regarding him as an elementary schooler. The moment they step into the shelter, the boy's mother spots him and screams out his name, which turns out to be Yoon Song. She rushes over to her son, thanking Suk for bringing him to the shelter safe and sound, because she knows that it must have been hard. While the woman is busy hugging her son and all, Suk notices that she has expensive things on her, which shows that they are rich. Suk immediately figures out why Song is a brat, and suddenly the outer wall gets shattered by a monster. Panic immediately ensues with everyone scrambling for safety. They can't believe that the outer wall was demolished, and while everyone is running away, Song calls Suk to follow them. However, Suk stands there in anger, because he can't believe that all he wanted was to return to a normal world. But he is somehow getting messed with. Anger brews in his body as he wonders if he is asking for too much. He stares at his palm that got burnt while saving Song, before calling him by the name he gave him, which is Brat. Suk asks Song why he is trying to become a hunter when his family is obviously rich. Suk knows that the dude could have just hidden out somewhere comfortable, and he doesn't even have to fight. Just then, Song reveals the sad truth of how he lost his father to a monster. Apparently, a corrosion rift opened up in the underground bunker where they were holed up. They all believed that they were safe, but this was the very day that Song realized the harsh truth that nowhere on the planet is safe. Song says he might not be strong, but he plans to become the strongest hunter to get rid of all the corrosion rifts, so he can save the world. Song says this with all determination, and tells Suk that he might sound stupid to him, but Suk cuts him off, telling him that he is actually going to become a great hunter. However, he shocks him by telling him that he won't be able to save the world. Song's mother is already panicking, and she tells her son that it is time for them to leave. Song is hesitant because Suk is still standing in front of the monster. Suddenly, they see a bright light behind them, and when they turn, they are shocked to see that Suk has already taken down the monster with his paradox flame. Suk lets Song know that he won't be able to save the world because he would have saved it already. With a smile on his face, Suk tells Song that saving the world is a job for someone who has done it before. After everything had settled down and Suk had promised Song that he was going to save the world, he simply retired to his apartment to play video games and eat junk food. Even though he confidently told everyone that he is going to save the world, that confidence didn't last very long because he lacked the desire, as he had abundant food and video games to keep him company. In addition to this, Suk doesn't think he is needed because there are already hunters working around the clock to save the world. Just then, Suk picks up his phone to order some more junks, and this is when reality hits him that he has already spent all of his termination pay. It turns out that the original owner of the body was an employee at a logistics company, but he lost his job when the company went bankrupt due to a corrosion rift. It then dawns on him that he has to find a job now that he has run out of money. He has already tried to get a job, but this is hard because there is no availability of normal jobs thanks to the constant appearance of corrosion rifts. In fact, most companies are already going out of business, leaving Suk totally confused about what to do. He is lying on his bed in frustration when a notification pops up on his phone about hunter recruitment. Since he already has experience in this line of work, Suk heads to the Hunter Association. Upon entering he finds plenty of other people who are there with the aim of becoming hunters. Suk hears two guys talking about how the selection process is nothing but a formality because what one needs to do in recent times to be selected is to show a unique skill. Everything seems to be going on normally when the legendary Cian shows up in the building, ultimately causing chaos among the aspirants. The candidates are all happy to see her because they already thought she wouldn't be available, since she went to Chair 1 to subjugate a corrosion rift. The candidates conclude that the Janabi squad must have sent Cian out personally to scout for the best among the candidates, but this begs the question of who they are there for. It turns out that it is a candidate named Han Sanga who is an academy graduate, and her awakened ability is electrokinesis. When Cian reads her file, she teases Sanga about her power, asking if she can charge batteries. Her assistant quickly reminds her that the girl is a hunter, not a power generator. He tells her that there are rumors that Sanga is skilled with her ability, which means she's going to be pretty useful. Cian's other assistant cuts in, saying hunting in corrosion rifts is real combat, and even though the candidates excel at the academy, there are many cases where they don't achieve great results in actual combat. Cian commends the dude for his ingenuity and commends him with a candy, while the other dude watches in disgust. Cian knows fully well that practice and real combat are completely different, which is why it is going to be difficult for academy students who have only had safe training to endure real combat. She believes that it is going to take a long time for Sanga to finally adapt. Moments later, the host shows up on the stage to welcome everyone to the arena. He tells them that the first match is about to begin, and Cian hopes that Sanga will raise her value enough to convince her. The host then tells everyone that the first candidate is an interesting one because he is a civilian who is not even from the Hunter Academy, which is quite unusual. The host is curious to know what kind of gut Suk has to stand on the stage, and by calling out Suk's name, he is introduced to the crowd. His opponent also steps onto the stage, and the host announces the rules of the match. He lets them know that personal weapons other than the ones provided for them by the association are not allowed. In addition, inflicting life-threatening injuries is banned. Deep down, Suk is just concerned about saving the world while eating well and living his life the way he wants it. And to do this, he figures out that the first step is to and Suk's opponent lights his spear on fire, while mocking Suk that he is a trash bag who doesn't even know how to gather mana. The dude hasn't even done anything, but he mocks Suk, telling him to consider his loss an honor. He dashes towards Suk while boasting that he is the undefeated spear master of the Hunter Academy. Just then, the dude suddenly notices that he can't see where Suk is. Before he knows what is happening, Suk appears beside him and he punches him in the tummy, sending a wave of pain through his body. Suk doesn't stop there as he delivers an uppercut to the dude's head to knock him down. The dude crashes to his knees in pain while missing a few teeth. Suk is surprised that the dude is already down on the ground when he was even holding back because he didn't want to hurt the guy. Suk just assumes that the dude is a beginner, which is why he is weak because he doesn't want to believe that this is just how weak hunters are. Meanwhile, Cian saw what Suk did, and she was blown away. She immediately whips out her tablet to conduct a background check on Suk. She finds out that he was just a regular guy working at a logistics company, and he doesn't even have mana in his body. One of Sian's assistants says Suk's punch might have been luck, but Sian gives him trash candy, which is basically telling him to shut his mouth. Sian lets them know that back in the arena, Suk decides to end the fight once and for all because he needs to show that he is competent. Suk then goes after his opponent, and the dude almost craps his pants when he sees Suk coming for him. Suk assures him that it is not going to be a fatal wound, so he doesn't have to worry. Even though he promised to go easy on the dude, Suk ends up knocking him out cold, ultimately getting the first win of the day. This leaves every official in shock, and Sian notices that the other guilds are already contemplating what to do. Sian plans to make her move ahead of them so she can see what Suk is really made of. Sian stands up to leave, and when her colleagues ask her where she is going, she reveals that she has to go and see the association president. As the competition proceeds, Suk continues to take down his opponents relatively easily. Suk is disappointed at just how weak the supposedly new hunters are. He is not even using weapons against them, as he is busy beating them up with his bare fists. Suk is ultimately disappointed in whatever it is they are teaching them in the Hunter Academy because he hasn't even fought a single competent candidate. Suk makes his way to the final, where he is going to go up against Sangha. Everyone is relying on her to stop Suk's dominant run. The moment Sangha steps on the stage, Suk commends her, saying she is the only one he has seen who has gathered the most mana out of everyone. Sangha, on the other hand, tells Suk that he has managed to get far by luck, but she lets him know that there will be no more flukes. Sangha grabs her sword, saying she has figured out that Suk has no unique skills, which is why he has been punching everything in front of him. She lets him know that she has no intention of going easy on him. Suk nervously thanks her for her consideration, and when it comes to a unique skill he actually has, but he has no intention of using it on Sangha. Sangha then takes a deep breath as she gathers her mana, ready to unleash hell on Suk. Once she is prepped, she dashes towards Suk, but to her utmost shock, Suk leaps into the air to dodge her strike. Sangha cannot believe what just happened because Suk basically dodged lightning just by jumping. Suk, on the other hand, is impressed by her skill because by running an electric current through the blade and its by doing this, she added magnetic force to the power of drawing the sword, ultimately turning it into a railgun. Suk tells Sangha that she has been the best so far, but lets her know that she is missing one important detail. He tells her that she was too focused on just attacking quickly. Basically, her mistake was that in order to accelerate the drawn sword even faster, she laid down a magnetic rail in the empty air. Suk tells her that no matter how fast and powerful it is, there is no idiot who would take an attack with a path that is in plain sight. Sangha still thinks Suk is a fluke and she tells him not to get cocky because she can defeat people like him without even using the said technique. She dashes towards Suk with another technique, but a slower one. Suk easily runs past this, asking Sangha if she is really dull because he basically dodged her fastest technique, but she is trying to hit him with something even slower. Trying not to lose to Suk, Sangha unleashes a powerful technique to shatter the ground, and Suk soon figures out that the girl is pushing herself to the limit. Suk realizes that the girl will get wrecked if she continues that way. Suk then decides to end the fight, saying they have had enough fun already. He teases her, telling her to raise her left hand if what he is about to do to her hurts. Before Sangha can even react, Suk has gotten to her and he punches her in the midsection, ultimately disrupting her organs. While she is still trying to understand what is happening, Suk finishes the fight with another punch that sends her flying in. Sangha is knocked out, shocking everyone because they never expected Suk to overwhelm the top student of the academy. Suk turns around to leave the stage but suddenly notices that Sangha is raising her left hand. Suk remembers the joke he made when he told her to raise her left hand if it hurt, and he is surprised that she actually raised her hand. Before Suk can leave, the referee gets an important update, and he tells Suk to take a short break, leaving Suk totally confused, since the fight should have been over already. The referee then announces something shocking, revealing that Suk and an active hunter are going to have a special match, leaving everyone shocked. It turns out that the active hunter has already been announced to the audience on the monitor, which is only available to them. The entire crowd goes crazy, and Suk figures out that the hunter must be really skilled. This hunter turns out to be none other than Sian, and Suk wonders if she is there to test his abilities. Sian steps onto the stage with her greatsword, telling Suk that she has to fight him because there is no other way to confirm his skills. She introduces herself and the guild she is working for, while suggesting that Suk has a proper match with her. She lets Suk know that he is free to refuse the match because it is too sudden. From a closer look, Suk can see why Sian is ranked 10th in the world because her composure and aura are something to behold. Even though he knows that he is going to have a hard time dealing with Sian and he happily accepts the challenge. Suk suggests that they get the match started, shocking the referee. Suk confidently reveals that he hasn't used up most of it, so he is pretty good. Since he is looking to get the best possible result, Suk concludes that fighting Sien would help him with this. Suk then grabs his spear, hoping to see if he can raise his value. 30 minutes into the fight, Suk is still standing, but he is already struggling against Sien's overwhelming power. Suk doesn't want to believe that he is going up against a woman with such a strong body. And he even realizes that his speed has reduced when compared to the early stages of the fight. Suk can see openings while fighting Sien, but his body is not agile enough to exploit these openings. He is already sweating, and he looks really exhausted in just 30 minutes of going up against Sien. Sien then teases him, saying she was hoping for a good warm-up for the first time in a while, but she can't believe that Suk is already tired. Nonetheless, she is still impressed that Suk was able to last the number of minutes that he did because she was already expecting him to fall off in the first 5 minutes. Sien then dashes, hoping to finish the match. With Sien running towards him, Suk starts racking his brain on what to do. He realizes that he has no mana stored up, and even the mana in the air is sparse. Even though he was reluctant to use his unique skill, he realizes that he no longer has a choice, and just as Sien is about to reach him, he activates Paradox Flame. Thanks, he is able to dodge Sien's attack at the last minute. Sien is surprised because she is pretty sure that she swung with so much power and accuracy that it should have been impossible for Suk to dodge, but he managed to. She also notices a black flame, leaving her curious. Suk smiles because he has just tapped into the power he trusts the most before returning to Earth. Basically, Paradox Flame doesn't burn matter, and the flame also burns using the abstract concepts he has designated as fuel. As of the moment, Suk can't burn concepts with high ignition points like self-memory or reason, leaving him with one practical concept to burn, which is fatigue. Suk dashes towards Sien, and Sien can see that he has gotten even faster. Suk delivers a powerful strike that forces Sien to block really hard, and she is surprised that Suk was able to recover in such a short space of time. The fight between the two immediately erupts into another level as they cross weapon, leaving clashing sounds and light. Sien notices that the concentration of mana in the air keeps fluctuating between high and low, and it is weird because the arena settings haven't changed. It turns out Paradox Flame releases mana as it burns abstract concepts, just like fire releases heat when it burns matter. It is now left for Suk to use mana to ignite the Paradox Flame, and the Paradox Flame in turn burns his fatigue to generate more mana, resulting in an endless circle. The two continue going at each other, shattering the arena grounds with their powerful attacks, and this is thanks to Suk's refusal to give up, because he is already used to a war of attrition. At some point, Sien asks him if he thinks he can keep this up, and Suk assures her that he can. Suk asks her if she likes guys who don't know how to quit, and Sien replies that she hates them. Just like how burnt trees leave ash as residue, it turns out that Paradox Flame also leaves behind a residue. If everything is later burned away until only residue is left, Paradox Flame will finally disappear. After 4 hours of intense fighting, Sien finally gets to knock Suk to the ground, and Sien commends him for holding out for so long. She brings out a big lollipop from her pocket and gives it to Suk, telling him that it is a reward for his hard work. She lets him know that her business card is also with the lollipop. Suk checks out the card, and Sien tells him that they are going to talk about the details later. She urges him to give her a call in the meantime, and with the conclusion of the selection trial, Suk is called to the front to receive his award. Days later, Suk uses his smartphone to check out the card details. He realizes that the smartphone basically provides everything that he needs to know. Suk is on his way to meet Sien when he runs into a giant. Suk asks him who he is, but he simply gives Suk his business card. Suk checks it out and realizes that the dude's name is Yunsong Hyan. He is a partner hunter for the Taibeak Guild, and without wasting time, he urges Suk to come to his guild. Hyan assures Suk that he is going to become a star if he decides to come and gain experience under him. Suk stares into Hyan's eyes and realizes that he isn't lying, but at the same time, he remembers that he already has engagements with Sien, so he can't even give Hyan an answer right away. Suk calmly tells Hyan that he would have to think about it, but Hyan laughs out loud, saying he has no intention of getting an answer right away. Just then, he grabs Suk by the shoulder, and he moves closer before telling him to think his answer through. After pulling off this ridiculous stunt, he leaves, telling Suk that he will be seeing him around. However, Suk immediately concludes that Taibeak is not part of his plan. Suk then puts a call through to Sien, asking her where he should meet her. Sien tells him to come to a place called the Hut, which is located on the second floor of the Hunter Association building. Moments later, Suk arrives at the hut, which appears to be a cafe. Upon entering, Sien calls him over to her table, and seeing Suk's reaction, the lady asks, Sien is surprised that Hyen showed interest in Suk, and she lets him know that the other guilds would not dare to make an offer again. Suk asks Sien if this applies to Janabi, too. Sien then reveals something shocking, telling Suk that she has no interest in recruiting him, leaving Suk to ask her why she would like to meet him. Sien tells Suk that she would like him to work as a freelancer without being affiliated to any guild. Sien tells Suk that Hyen would have most likely offered him a junior position. Suk is confused by this, and he asks Sien what she means by junior position and a partner hunter. Since Suk isn't from the Hunter Academy, Sien explains that the ranks for hunters belonging to a guild are usually divided into three. There are juniors, seniors, and partners. Juniors and seniors belong to teams led by partner, so they are essentially employees on a salary or wage. However, partner hunters have shares in the guild instead of a salary, and they share the net profits the guild earns. They might be seen as business owners. Apparently, the hunter who first established the guilds used law firms as a model. It turns out that one doesn't need to belong to a guild or go through the junior and senior ranks to become a partner hunter. Suk finally understands everything Sien is saying. Basically, if he becomes famous and achieves incredible results, the big guilds will automatically come running after him. Leaving the dude wondering why her weird ass is giving him candy. Suk then reminds Sien that he has no connections or anything, so it is going to be hard for him to get proper requests. Sien tells Suk that she is going to help him with this aspect without charging him anything. Suk is surprised, but at the same time understands why Sien would go to this. Sien tells Suk that she just wants him to remember in the future that there was a guild called Janabi that helped him out when he was still unknown. In simple terms, Sien is helping Suk, so he can owe her. Sien then gives Suk an envelope, telling him that it is his choice to carry out the mission in it or not. Suk asks her what it is, and she reveals that it is a request from Incheon City. Apparently, there is a place called Gyodango Island where a corrosion zone formed 2 years ago after a failed attempt to eliminate a corrosion rift. Suk asks if it is his job to get rid of the rift, but Sien tells him that his job is to patrol the island, and if any additional corrosion rifts appear, he is to take care of them. The mission is going to start in a month's time, and Suk is getting paid 5 million upfront with an additional 15 million if the mission is successful. Suk tells Sien that the pay is not enticing, considering the fact that the job is highly risky. Sien tells Suk to get stronger and become famous so that more money will be offered for his services. Sien then asks him what his decision is, and he takes the request. Later on, Sien puts a call through to her boss to tell him just how crazy Suk is. Her boss asks her who he is, and she explains that he is a civilian who cleared the selection trials with his bare hands. The boss doesn't think this is something too crazy, but Sien lets her boss know that Suk practically The boss still thinks Suk lasted that long because Sien was messing around with him. Sien then reminds her boss that she is a veteran hunter with 10 years of experience, and all of her experience has been built upon surviving hellish places. She mentions that in normal cases, she should be able to toy with Suk, but he gave her a run for her money by lasting for 4 hours. Sien admits just how incredible Suk is, saying she might never get to see another monster like him. Her boss is tired of hearing her glaze Suk and asks her if the mission she gave to Suk didn't require hunters with prior mission experience. The man is worried that Suk might not be able to cope with veteran hunters, even though he is pretty skilled. Sien then tells her boss not to worry because she already paired Suk with someone reliable, Sangha. The boss decides to trust Sien's judgment because she is the brain of the operation in the guild. The boss then asks Sien what she thinks Suk would be like when and Sien confidently tells her boss that Suk would be able to take him down as well. 1 month earlier, Suk received an order for a spear and an elixir in his apartment. The elixir is a potion that hunters use in emergencies, and it contains condensed mana, which is really helpful when mana is urgently needed. When it is similar to drinking water from a water purifier. One can control mana in the store it in the body, and even use it when needed. The elixir in his hand allows him to do this in a short period of time. However, Suk uses mana in a different way from others because he skips the storage process and directly absorbs and uses the mana from the The advantage of this is that there is no limit since Suk uses the mana in the air. In addition, in the process of taking in the mana and letting it out, the mana channels that the mana passes through gradually strengthen, which allows for the use of more mana. However, the only downside to this is that until the mana channels grow, the amount Suk can handle is small, which makes it difficult to produce a strong output in a short time. Suk then decides to use some of it since there is no time to waste. He is convinced that he would have gotten better with his new body by the time he trains it for a month. Now in the present day, the hunters line up to have their identities verified before they are allowed into the island. Once Suk's identity is confirmed, the official tells him that he is in Squad 8. Suk joins the rest of the squad and keeps mute while they are all talking like parrots. Just then, he hears someone call his name, and when he looks up, he realizes that it is Sanga. She is wearing an armless shirt and there is a scar that runs through her shoulder. It turns out that they are in the same squad, and Sanga suggests that they work together on the mission. Suk asks her why he should agree to work with her, and she reminds him that he is stronger than her. Because of this, she believes that she can learn from Suk, and Suk teases her saying his shoulder is about to fall. Sanga's inability to take a joke comes in again as she asks Suk if his shoulders dislocate often. Suk remembers just the same way she literally raised her hand during their match, which shows just how much she lacks a sense of humor. Moments later, the squad is called together and the official briefs them on the mission objective, since they have new hunters among them, which is clearly Suk. He mentions that corrosion rifts are classified as Class 1, Class 2, Class 3, and unclassified. The closer a rift is to Class 1, the more dangerous it is. He adds that the first corrosion rift to appear in a specific area is given the additional name, Alpha. It turns out that the current location of the Alpha corrosion rift on the island is the church in the northern part. However, he lets them know that the corrosion is still an unclassified one. Since corrosion gets stronger over time, the official urges them not to go near the rift. He tells them that their mission is to patrol the area to identify and eliminate any additional corrosion rifts that may have appeared. A yellowhead in the squad is surprised that they are embarking on an elimination mission with a rookie among them. Before Suk knows it, he realizes that the entire squad is acting weird toward him because he is a supposed newbie. Before they leave, they are informed that the offshore the hunters are sent off with a stroke of good luck. Upon arriving at the island, the seasoned hunters start to make a plan, but Suk cuts in, suggesting that they set up a base at Wajiza Temple so that they can operate from there. He shows them where the temple is on the map, but the seasoned hunters can't believe that they are being given instructions by a freaking rookie. In addition, they want to know why he is going to the temple, and Suk explains that from the temple, one can see their target area. In addition, they get to see the entire region directly from the peak. He mentions that the old temple building is also available, so they can just use this for lodging, which is basically the obvious thing that they have to do. The seasoned hunters immediately start screaming at him, telling him that there are several other places that they can see. One even asks him what they are supposed to do when they are surrounded after needlessly climbing a mountain. Suk reminds them that they are not fighting thousands of enemies, so there is no way they are going to get surrounded. Even though Suk is trying to convince them, the hunters let him know that they have no reason to follow his orders, since he is seriously inexperienced. Suk is left in shock that there are also idiots back on Earth, just like in the other world. Since they have no interest in following him, Suk suggests that they go their separate ways. Suk makes his move and dashes toward the temple with Sanga following him. Surprisingly, the yellowhead from earlier is also following them, leaving Suk to wonder why the dude is following them. Suk calls the dude's name, which is Kim Min-jae, asking him why he is following them. Min-jae boasts about how he is following them to keep an eye on them because they are rookies. Suk thanks Min-jae for his consideration because he is surprised that there is at least one decent person on the squad. Suddenly, Suk telling the other two to also stop. He tells them to be quiet, and he urges Min-jae to take a peek behind the cover. To his surprise, there are monsters in the pathway, and he immediately suggests that they take another path because there are at least. Suk then asks Min-jae what his unique skill is. This question baffles Min-jae because he doesn't want to believe that Suk is planning to fight the monsters. Suk asks him if it is not the normal thing for a hunter to fight a monster, and he repeats the question, asking him about his unique skill. Min-jae replies that it is flames, and he asks him what skill he is most confident in, to which Min-jae reveals that it is fireball. Suk is glad to hear this, and he tells Min-jae that he is going to attack the monsters on his signal. Min-jae saying the whole thing is reckless because there are just 3 of them and they have to go up against 50 of them. He adds that it is their first mission and the right thing to do is to radio the other hunters when they still have the chance to do so. Suk subtly replies that the hunters won't arrive on time because, unlike them, who departed directly from Wajiza Temple, the other hunters are currently searching along the coast. Suk mentions that it is reckless to call in the other hunters because there is no guarantee that the hunters who hear the radio will even show up. In addition, the monsters can become a threat to the other hunters if they scatter while they wait. Deep down, Min-jae knows that Suk is right because the other hunters might not come immediately because they already had a conflict earlier that day. Suk lets him know that the only option is to deal with the monsters themselves. Even though the situation appears to be disadvantageous, Suk tells them that what they need to do is land a surprise attack. Since they are running out of time, Suk starts to draw out the plan in the sand. He tells Min-jae that he will be the first to attack the center with a fireball while he blocks the sides. From the plan Suk is making, Min-jae is completely blown away because he can't believe Suk is anticipating every scenario as if he is already used to things like this. Once Suk is done explaining, Min-jae swings into action and he hits the monsters with a fireball. This leaves a big explosion consuming the monsters that are hit. Min-jae pulls back saying it is going to take time before he can use another fireball. Suk steps up to continue the attack and he tells Min-jae to shoot another fireball as soon as it is ready. Min-jae acknowledges the order and Suk takes on the enemies unaffected by the fire, cutting them down like butter. Since Suk is one who prefers efficiency on a mission, he has always believed in dividing roles. He plans to take on the monsters until the next fireball is ready, but he knows for sure that he can't block all of them by himself. This is basically why it is important that they divide roles. Any monster that misses Suk's strike gets taken down by Sang-jae, who is standing behind. Moments later, Min-jae tells Suk that he is ready to shoot another fireball and Suk immediately gets out of the way, giving Min-jae the chance to land another devastating blow on the enemies. In no time, they have cleared out the enemies and Suk is still complimenting them for a job well done when before they can suffer a heart attack, Min-jae urges them to step aside and Suk heaves a sigh of relief because he already thought Min-jae was about to shoot his arse. Suk then implants a microchip into a dead monster, revealing that once the mission is over and the area is secure, the junk dealer he has a contract with will come and collect the bodies. Suk has no idea what the dude means by junk dealer and Min-jae reveals that it is hard for them to recover the byproducts from the corpses themselves because they are obviously heavy. Tagging them with chips gives the junk dealers the right to come over after the mission is over to collect anything that is valuable. Once they have collected everything, they appraise the items, sell them and then split the profits. The junk dealers take their commission based on the contract and the rest goes back to the hunter who implanted the chip. Suk asks Min-jae if he can trust the junk dealers and he replies that this is why it is important to find a good junk dealer to sign a contract with. Min-jae then commends Suk, telling him that he was amazing because he never expected that the three of them could take on the 50 monsters. Suddenly Suk's tingling senses tell him that, without hesitation he grabs Min-jae and dives forward to dodge a surprise attack from a giant monster that has been stalking them. Fortunately Min-jae escapes unhurt, leaving him to ask what just attacked them. Suk takes a closer look at the monster and mentions that it is some kind of mid-level boss. Suk is taken aback by the arrival of the monster, leaving him to wonder if the monster is the boss of the other monsters that they just defeated. Suk can also see that it is no joke because the amount of mana it is giving off is on a completely different level from the ones they just fought. Without hesitation he tells the two to stay back while he handles the monster. Min-jae and Sang-jae believe that they are supposed to help by using a pincer movement, but Suk screams at them to get back or else they want to go home in a body bag. The level of seriousness in Suk's voice immediately pushes the two back, and deep down Suk already analyzes the situation to know that it would be better if he handled the monster alone. Since there is no one hindering him, he figures out that he can just use Paradox Flame against the monster. Once Suk is ready he taunts the monster, telling it to come at him. Moments later Min-jae asks Sang-jae if they are not going to help Suk because he looks like he is in trouble. Sang-jae lets him know that there is no need for this because it might look like Suk is in trouble, but he hasn't been hit even once since the fight started. In addition to this, the attacks that Suk is dodging easily are something she would have struggled against. Suk is basically dodging and attacking at the same time. Sang-jae also notices that anytime Suk's spear lands an attack, a black flame appears each time, leaving Sang-jae to wonder what it is. The more the flame output is, the slower the monster gets. In the beginning it appeared that Suk was struggling, but it turns out that he is basically toying with the monster. Sang-jae is totally blown away because she doesn't want to believe that Suk is a rookie hunter like her. After Suk is done toying with the monster, he does something surprising by throwing his spear into the air while the monster dashes toward him at full speed. Sang-jae freaks out, believing that the monster is going to strike him down, but just as the monster is about to reach Suk, it gets crushed by the spear falling from above. Suk didn't even flinch, showing just how confident he is in his skills. He commends the monster because it could still move even though it had burned all of its strength. Suk then decides that it is time to finish off the monster. Min-jae is completely overwhelmed by what he just witnessed because there is no way in hell Suk easily took down such a heavy monster. After Suk is done taking down the monster, he asks Min-jae if it is normal for a monster of that strength to appear on the island. Min-jae lets him know that he was also wondering the same thing because the monster is not even the core of the corrosion rift. Min-jae says it could have been possible given they were taken on a rift that was at least grade 3. This is when it dawned on Suk that during the mission briefing he heard that the Alpha Corrosion Rift was unclassified. Since this is the case, Suk lets the two know that the Alpha Corrosion Rift on the island has gone up to grade 3. Sang-jae doesn't want to believe this because the briefing said otherwise, but Suk urges her to think about it rationally. He tells her that there is no way to explain the situation if the corrosion is not grade 3. Minja freaks out when he hears this because the difference between an unclassified rift and grade 3 is like night and day. Minja reveals that if this is true, the hunters are at risk and they might not even make it back alive. Minja immediately suggests that they go save the other hunters because with Suk's skill they have a chance. However, Suk immediately rejects the offer, saying he is not interested. Minja asks him why he is rejecting the request, and he reveals that there is no way he is going to save all the hunters. He reminds Minja that he is human and he has his limits too. He reminds the two that their mission isn't to save hunters in danger but to identify and eliminate any new corrosion rifts that have appeared. In addition, he lets them know that it is obvious that not everyone will survive, which is part of the job memo. Sangja then asks Suk what he is going to do if he is in the hunter's situation. Suk doesn't understand where she is coming from and she tells him that he would have begged to be saved, and with a stern voice Suk lets them know that he is not refusing this because he doesn't understand human emotions. He lets them know that he is only talking about the outcome because in this world there are deaths that are unavoidable. He tells them that once faced with deaths like this, it is normal for one to just die. Suk urges them not to operate with emotions because they are not going to survive in a cruel world with their kind of mindset. Later that night they make it to the temple, and after searching through the temple, Suk tells the two that the building is safe. Minja then says it is a good thing that they can see the other hunters' locations because of their lights. However, Suk is not entirely in support of this because using lights is a clear invitation for the enemy. He knows that the monsters will be able to handle regular monsters, but he is worried that a stronger monster just like before might appear again. Suk then decides to send out a warning telling the hunters that there is a possibility that the rift has become a grade 3. He urges them to refrain from using lights recklessly because it can put them in danger. Suk then asks Minja if the other monsters will disappear if the core of the rift is destroyed, and Minja confirms this. He lets Suk know that without the energy radiating from the rift, the corrupted zone will vanish. The moment Suk hears this, he concludes that his mission is simple, which is to destroy the corrosion rift. Later that night, once the two are asleep, Suk prepares to step out. Before leaving, he drops an alarm device that would go off if a monster approaches, and Suk believes that he should be able to go and come back without worrying about them. As he cuts through the forest, Suk is glad that he confirmed the location of the Alpha Corrosion Rift during the briefing. Suk believes that things would work out easily, but he ends up jinxing it as he runs into another boss-level monster which looks even scarier than the one he fought earlier. Earlier in the Hunter Association Situation Room, they are freaking out because they have lost the signals of some hunters from Team 5 and they are presumed to be dead. As if this isn't enough, there are reports that the monsters are moving in an organized fashion and there is already a confirmed casualty in Team 3. The team leader screams out in frustration, wondering what the problem is because the fighters are supposed to be investigating an unclassified corrosion rift. In panic, the team leader declares an emergency, telling the higher-ups that they're going to need reinforcements. He demands that they activate the emergency contact network and send out an urgent request for cooperation to all hunters in the vicinity. They are in the process of this when he is informed that someone is approaching the Alpha Corrosion Rift. The team leader freaks out when he hears this and he tells his subordinates to contact whoever it is and tell them to stop. One of the officials gets the report that the hunter heading toward the Alpha Corrosion is Sayok from Team 8. The team leader orders that they connect to Sayok's terminal to immediately confirm that he is alive. The team leader is surprised that Sayok is the first to understand the situation because a rift upgrade is. He figures out that since Sayok is the only one heading to the Alpha Corrosion, it basically shows that he is the only one with an answer. By the time they finally contact Sayok, he is already engaging the terrifying beast he ran into. Sayok screams at those in the control room, telling them that they are crazy for not thoroughly carrying out an investigation to confirm if the rift is truly an unclassified corrosion. Sayok makes sure to call them all sorts of names, leaving the officials to consider muting him. While running from the beast, Sayok figures out that his paradox flame doesn't have what it takes to defeat the beast. This means he has to reduce the beast's health with paradox flame and then finish it off with his spear. However, Sayok is facing a problem because he has already drawn too much mana from the island when facing the mid-level boss from earlier. This has left his paradox flame a bit weak, and since he can't leave the island, Sayok decides to find a place where he can draw mana. After some minutes of running around, he finally finds what he has been looking for, which is the Alpha Rift. Without hesitation, Sayok dives into the rift while taunting the beast, telling it to keep up because there is something he needs to confirm. Back in the Situation Room, they are shocked when Sayok's GPS signal suddenly vanishes and they figure out that he has entered the Alpha Corrosion Rift. Once he is in the rift, Sayok expresses his surprise at how clean the rift is. In addition, it is quite big, and Sayok wonders just how big the Grade 1 and Grade 2 rifts are going to be if the unclassified one is this big. Just then the boss monster shows up on the scene and Sayok figures out that it is time to end their battle. Sayok has always had one issue with Paradox Flame, and this is the fact that it spreads to every living being except him. The flame is capable of taking out an ally, and sometimes it even reaches a level that he can no longer control. This is the only disadvantage that the skill has, but if he is fighting alone it is not much of a disadvantage because he gets to fight whichever way he wants. Sayok swings his weapon at the monster, unleashing a big wave of flame on it while also absorbing mana into every corner of his body. This widens his amount of pathways, making him even stronger, and a deep breath of this shows Sayok what he has been missing so far. Just then the monster screams out and Sayok immediately figures out what it is up to. In no time other monsters show up on the scene and Sayok is not surprised because he knows the monster was calling for backup with its annoying scream. However, Sayok tells the boss monster that a game of numbers is useless. Sayok creates a barrier of flames around himself, wiping out the monsters while telling them that he is already stronger than before, even though he is not as strong as he was in the other world. According to Minnie, the core of the rift will be the strongest monster in the rift. Suddenly Sayok gets attacked from behind by a monster that can talk, but he manages to dodge the attack. By the time he looks back he sees an ugly monster staring at him. Sayok is surprised that the monster is a smart one because it can talk and even waits till his paradox flame burns out before showing itself. With a closer look he realizes that the monster standing in front of him is the core of the rift. With the current level of power he has, Sayok believes that a 4-hit combo is possible for him, and without hesitation he makes his move. He throws his spear at the monster but it blocks it with his spear. However, the force from the spear keeps pressing down on the sword and Sayok activates a skill called Dual Orbit Spear. Suddenly the spear releases a massive energy blast that breaks through the monster's spear before penetrating its body, unleashing a devastating blast to destroy the monster's body. It turns out that the Dual Orbit Spear is a blue trajectory that is generated following the path of his attack. This trajectory mimics the first strike but repeats it 4 times. It is basically a technique that repeats 4 consecutive attacks, and if the blue trajectory attacks a bit late it completes a tricky 2-part spear round that is absolutely difficult to dodge. At this point the monster is already leaping towards Sayok, ready to strike him down. However, this turns out to be its mistake as the spear closes in at the right time. Sayok grabs the spear, delivering a powerful strike to cut the monster before unleashing the final strike that shatters the enemy's body. Surprisingly, after defeating the monster it just doesn't disappear as Sayok is given a box. Meanwhile, those in the control room were still freaking out and they believe that it was over because the team watches in horror, saying only a miracle can save them because all of the hunters are going to be wiped out since they have denied his request for reinforcement. Suddenly the team leader is informed that Sayok, who entered the rift, just sent a message. The team leader demands to know the details of the mission and they display it on the main screen. To their surprise, Sayok informs them that the alpha corrosion has been taken care of. Just as Sayok said, they started to get signals that the rift had disappeared and all monsters had started to disappear. The team leader is dumbfounded when he hears this because it is nothing but a miracle just as he prayed for, but he wonders how Sayok did it. Moments earlier Sangha and Min-jae had found themselves surrounded by a horde of monsters. With Sayok nowhere to be found, Min-jae asks Sangha if there is a chance that they are even going to make it out alive. Sangha realizes that the dude is already at his limit and even she doesn't know how long she can hold on either. One of the monsters lunges at them and Sangha prepares to engage but realizes a grim truth. She realizes that she is already at her limit and her legs won't even move. Sangha closes her eyes as she waits for death to come. In a surprising turn of events, Sayok defeated the core at that very moment and the monsters started to disappear. Later on, Sayok arrives at the island hunter assembly point and realizes that there are a lot of injured people. He figures out that the corrosion creatures went on a rampage while he was gone. The other hunters who were not ready to work with Sayok before already got the news that he was the one who took down the rift by himself. They are all shocked and in disbelief because a grade 3 rift is not something a rookie can just take on. Sayok soon finds his teammates and Min-jae expresses his shock that Sayok took on the rift all by himself. Sayok then tells Min-jae that his heart wanted to do the right thing. Sayok had already decided that he was going to play the good guy since things had gone well already. They are still discussing this when an official shows up telling Sayok that he is Baeon Jongtae and that he is from the Korea Op. Apparently he is the 3rd branch manager for the northern Incheon province. Baeon tells Sayok that the mayor would like to see him. Moments later Sayok arrives at the mayor's office under heavy rain, but Sayok doesn't really mind because he is looking to renegotiate his reward. Upon arriving at the building he is welcomed by Lee Piljae, the communications and liaison officer. On their way to the mayor's office, Piljae lets Sayok know that the mayor has been looking forward to the meeting, revealing that he was shocked when he received the report from the island. It turns out that the mayor cancelled all of his schedule after getting the report, and Seok teases him saying he shouldn't have done that because he didn't even do anything impressive. Piljae tells Seok not to say that because a rookie hunter destroying a grade 3 corrosion rift single-handedly hasn't happened since the time when the very first hunter was still active. Seok is surprised that there was someone who had done it before, and he believes that the dude should be the real deal. Not long after this they arrive at the mayor's office. The mayor welcomes Seok while also apologizing for calling him out in such awful weather. Seok then tells Seok to have a seat while ordering Piljae to get them coffee. Once they are alone, Seok commends him, telling him that he has done a great service for the country. He admits that the island was a pain in the neck to deal with because their budget was limited, so hiring an expensive guild was difficult. Seok replies that he is pretty sure the man is happy that the issue has been resolved since he was able to take care of it at a relatively low cost. Jaein confirms this while asking Seok if it is true that it is his first mission, and Seok says yes. The mayor gets up on his feet in excitement, saying he is proud of Seok because his first steps were in Incheon. He starts talking about how Korea is the safest country in the world, leaving Seok to wonder what is suddenly wrong with the dude. The mayor continues by saying Incheon is one of the key places in the country because it is a trade center. In addition to this, the Free Economic Zone project is attracting foreigners who want to invest. In fact, there have been so many that it is hard to pick one. The mayor tells Seok that there are massive funds coming through Incheon's international cities. The mayor then tells Seok that he is going to provide all the assistance he can to make life easy for Seok as a hunter. On their way to the mayor's office, Baeon had asked Seok what his purpose was for being a hunter. Seok makes an analogy saying someone has to always be there to clean the clogged toilet. Upon hearing this, Baeon tells Seok that he is pretty sure he will become famous and extremely popular. He also knows that companies will start begging him to shoot commercials for them, and he might even get scouted for famous TV shows. Seok realizes that Baeon is worried that he would change because of fame, and Baeon confirms this. Baeon says there are many cases of promising hunters who become intoxicated with popularity and honor, causing them to lose sight of their duty. He says this is not shocking because it is natural. He adds that the only safe place is Korea, and it is called the last sanctuary left on Earth. Baeon lets him know that what he has accomplished is incredible, which means many people will be watching him with interest. Baeon tells Seok that he wishes he would continue to be a symbol of hope. Now that Seok is in the mayor's office, Seok realizes that the mayor is basically laying out everything without even going through the corner. However, he knows the mayor will soon learn that he is not someone who is easily swayed by things like this. Seok has lived for so long, suffered many countless hardships, making all of these nothing to him. Seok then asks the mayor if there is something he wants from him, since there is no way he is going to support him for free. Seok goes on the offensive, telling the mayor that he is pretty sure he is looking to buff up his approval ratings for re-election. The mayor is surprised at how well-informed Seok is, and Seok mentions that someone can find everything on their phone. The mayor is stunned by just how much It turns out that the mayor is actually right because he needs the mayor's permission to participate in missions since he is a rookie. Seok realizes that if the mayor frames it well, he could say Seok was a talent he discovered in Incheon. The mayor then tells Seok that he has always maintained relationships with many overseas and domestic companies. He taps on the coffee pack on the table, saying the model shooting the commercial for the coffee brand would soon have her contract run out. He believes that they are supposed to replace her face with Seok's face. He is about to continue with his bullshit when Seok drops the coffee cup, asking the mayor if he takes him for someone cheap. The mayor is confused by this, and Seok mentions that by the way things are going in the world, it appears that the world needs someone who can change the dreary atmosphere. He lets the mayor know that if he continues working as a hunter, it means he can get everything the mayor is promising him really easily. Seok gets up to leave while the mayor tries to convince him, saying he can provide him with safe and high-paying commissions. Seok walks off, saying his offers are trash and he can hand them over to his coffee mix model. Meanwhile, a strange man is seen receiving a report about how their test on the island was a failure thanks to Seok's intervention. They are able to get a clip from his selection trials match, and the strange man gets curious about the black flame around his body. Since the start of the rankings, it turns out that the first of every month is when rankings are always updated, and the whole nation is always looking forward to this. Everyone is looking forward as usual because they want to know who the number one hunter is going to be. Even though there aren't many changes in the rankings, it is a source of entertainment for the public. Seon is also interested in the rankings because she wants to know if Suk is going to be on it. In the end, it turns out to be so different. In 10th place is Seon, while 5th place is given to Kim Cha Hyun. Choi Uriam was in 3rd place while Jang Tae-suk was in 2nd place. And as for the 1st place, it turns out to be none other than Suk. This ultimately earned him a big press conference where he is expected to answer questions. All the focus is on Suk because he is a rookie and he cleared a grade 3 rift. Suk is riddled with questions about how he was able to clear the rift, and after so many questions Suk finally asks for one last question. The reporter asks him what his resolution is and he assures them that he is going to do his best. Later on, Suk is invited by the association president Moon on a tour. He takes him to where Gonzo's prison used to be. There is a big hole in the ground where Gonzo used to be, and Moon lets him know that what he is staring at is the fate of many countries. Apparently most countries lost their administrative capabilities. However, South Korea became a powerhouse that successfully defended the nation and even made technological advancements. He reveals that the helicopter they are riding in is part of the technological prowess of the country because it runs on mana and blocks out external noise. Suk asks Moon if this is how countries that couldn't handle the rift ended up, and Moon says yes, revealing that many capitals disappeared after the corrosion rifts appeared. Moon suggests that they take a closer look, and as they move closer to the crater, he mentions that there were 8 most dangerous corrosion rifts in the world, and the Gonzal prison is one of them. It turns out that the Gonzal prison was formed 13 years ago, spreading into the city without any signs or warnings. Even though some survived, they still got swept away because the entire area had already turned into a corrosion zone. In a matter of days, the entire city vanished without a trace. As they leave the scene, Moon lets Suk know that the power in the world hasn't changed that much, but central powers have weakened. Deep down, Suk is glad that he is learning all of this information, but at the same time, he doesn't understand why he has to come to the scene to know them. Moon then reveals that Hyen from Taebeek came to see him some days ago, and it appears that he is mad that Suk is not joining his guild. In fact, he asked for Suk's whereabouts, but Moon assures Suk that he didn't give him since it is obviously personal information. Moon tells Suk that the Taebeek guild has an ideology that revolves around survival of the fittest, and if Suk doesn't do what they want, they might want to subdue him with force. Suk cannot believe that they are going to go to that extent, but at the same time, he is worried that he can't take on Hyen at the moment. Moon then mentions the fact that Suk looks like someone who doesn't want to be affiliated with any guild, so he can do his things the way he likes, and Suk confirms this. Moon lets Suk know that he has to raise his standards if he wants to stop Taebeek from coming after him. He mentions that there is a way to do this, and one of them is to take on missions from the association president. The moment Suk hears this, he is not surprised because he already knows that there is a motive behind it all. Suk immediately asks the man what he wants because he is pretty sure he is not going to give him missions for free. Moon tells Suk that all he wants is for him to remember that he gave him help. He then passes an envelope to him, telling him to check out the contents. Suk believes that he has struck gold because it is a deal from the president, which isn't so bad for building a reputation. Suk asks the man what he is supposed to do, and the man reveals that he is expected to escort a cargo ship from Busan to Nanning City. He mentions that transportation isn't easy, thanks to the corrosion rifts appearing everywhere. Suk then checks out the lists of what he is supposed to be escorting and realizes that they are all luxurious items, including a car. Suk is surprised by this and expresses his shock at what people still consider a necessity. And Moon lets him know that everything on the list are necessities for some people. Moon expects Suk to understand this, but Suk says he doesn't because he doesn't understand the need for these things in a country where the government is already shattered. Moon says many countries might be collapsing because of the rifts, but it doesn't mean international politics have become obsolete. Suk immediately realizes that the mission is meant to maintain international relationships. Since this is the case, Suk takes off his seatbelt and tells the man that he has no interest in the mission. Moon is shocked to hear this, and he lets Suk know that the Korean government takes the mission seriously. Even with this, Suk tells Moon that he is not interested. Suk tells the old man that it would be foolish of him to involve himself in international politics. The old man is pissed that Suk is rejecting the offer, and he tries to remind him that he is just a new hunter who debuted not long ago, but Suk doesn't really care, as he throws the mission papers out of the helicopter. Suk also opens the door, thanking the old man for the ride, but lets him know that he is going to swim back to Seoul himself. Without hesitation, Suk dives out of the chopper and lands in the water below, leaving the man totally shocked. Later on, Suk emerges at the Incheon airport, and he casually climbs out of the water. He finds a port worker and the two casually exchange greetings like it was nothing. Since he might get threatened in the future, Suk decides that the first thing he has to do is to strengthen himself. He plans to do this by taking on the trickiest mission so he can become a big shot who would not be swayed by anyone again. Suk looks through his phone and soon finds a mission that looks like what he wants. This is a mission to rescue kidnapped victims on Tsushima Island, and the estimated rank is grade 2. Suk then takes a deep breath with the realization that he is going to be busy for a while. Apparently, on September 3rd, fishermen from Gyeonggi Island and Tongyeong set out to sea, but the sea was different from usual because corrosion creatures that nested on Tsushima Island appeared and kidnapped the fishermen as if hunting them. According to the words of a survivor who barely escaped, the captured fishermen are still alive. The mission requires that Suk go to Tsushima Island to rescue the captured hostages and eliminate the corrosion rift. As for the reward, it is $55 million won, and Suk knows that the whole money will be his if he handles the mission. In addition to this, he is going to be called a hero if he can pull it off solo. Even though it is worth the challenge, Suk remembers what they said about grades and the creatures residing in them. It is said that a grade 3 corrosion rift has the destructive power of a tank, but a grade 2 corrosion rift creature is a natural disaster level. As for grade 1, the whole country would have to mobilize to try to subdue a single corrosion creature. He knows that he was able to handle the grade 3 rift because of Paradox Flame, but he wonders if he can withstand grade 2 by himself. To be safe, he figures out that he might need someone useful, but the problem is to find someone who is ready to take a civilian's request. He wonders if there is really no one who can, but suddenly it dawns on him that there is someone who can. Soon afterward, Suk and his partner, who is no one other than Sunga, boards a ship heading to their target destination. Sunga asks him when they are going to reach their destination, and he replies that they have about an hour. He urges her to replenish her stamina before they get there, because the battle is going to be tougher than the last time. While Suk is busy saying all of these, Sunga is more curious about the metal pad on his shoulder. She asks him about it because with the look of it, it appears that it is a limited edition, leaving her to wonder how he got it. Suk is tired of hearing the girl talk, and he is forced to tell her that the junk dealer he contracted with was the one who gave him as a gift. Sunga is surprised by this because the place she contracted with didn't even give her anything useful. Suk teases her, telling her that the level of expectation is different because he is a rising prospect who handled a grade 3 corrosion rift by himself, unlike her, who is just a shitty rookie with nothing but the title of Academy valedictorian. Suk notices the cold expression on her face and knows that she is wronged by his statement. But he uses this to tell her to get stronger and become famous to avoid further insult. Some days earlier, Suk had reached out to Sunga to tell her that he needed a teammate. Sunga was initially hesitant because they almost died in a grade 3 rift, and Suk is suggesting that they take on a grade 2 rift. Suk is able to convince her by asking her if she is interested in getting stronger. He assured her that he could make her stronger than she currently is. It turns out that Sunga even has a personal reason as to why she wants to get stronger. And she would even jump into hell itself if it means getting stronger. Moments later, the alarm on the ship goes off, warning them that there is an unidentified object ahead. In no time, they come into contact with 5 ships. Suk is still trying to figure out their next course of action when he sees Sunga levitating, leaving him shocked. Sunga is surprised that Suk can't do this, and she turns red in excitement because she has finally found something Suk can't do. She laughs out loud, making fun of Suk for not being able to easily move. Sunga is forced to carry Suk on her back, and once they are closer to the ships, Suk tells Sunga to handle the closest ship. Sunga asks him why, and he reveals that the ones in the back appear to be more dangerous than the ones close to them. Sunga acknowledges the order, but as she approaches the ship, she notices a human figure. But Suk tells her to look again, because what she is looking at is not human. Suk takes on the ship he wants to clear out, and just as predicted, he finds transformed humans on the ship. These humans have lost their humanity and have totally become aggressive. Sunga lands on the ship roughly, ultimately calling attention to herself. The monsters attack, and Suk easily takes out the first wave. With this, he realizes that they are low-level monsters. He expects Sunga to be going out gently too, but to his surprise, Sunga is using her full power against the weak monsters. Suk immediately calls her name to caution her, telling her that she is using too much mana. He lets her know that if she continues that way, she is going to run out of mana in no time. He tells her that all she needs for the current level is a small amount of mana, and Sunga remembers what Suk said about teaching her to become stronger. Following Suk's instruction, Sunga reduces the amount of firepower she is using, but Suk still lets her know that it is still too much. Since the life of the weak is a tragedy, Sunga has decided that she will never be a weakling again. While tearing down the enemies, Sunga confidently reiterates her desire to become even stronger. Moments later, Sunga is done clearing out the monsters, and she asks Suk if it is over. Suk lets her know that he already took care of the other boats. Sunga reluctantly thanks Suk, telling him that she gained a lot from the advice he gave her. Suk teases her, saying she doesn't have to thank him because the world is filled with people who would not learn even if he spoon-fed them. Sunga comes clean, saying this is the first time someone has advised her, and Suk is shocked by this. He asks her what she was being taught in the academy, and she reveals that since she learned everything quickly, they didn't bother to teach her fundamentals. Suk then teases her, asking her if she doesn't think she is going to be stronger than him if he continues to teach her the way he is. With tears in her eyes, she tells Suk that she hasn't been able to surpass even a single teacher. Suk is surprised to see the girl in such an emotional state, and he casually tells her that she doesn't have to worry about this because it is not going to happen with him. since he is going to make sure that she continues looking up to him for the rest of her life. As they are about to dive deeper, the sailors tell Suk and Sunga that they are going to remain on guard, just in case they need them. Before they start their journey, Suk tells Sunga that according to the survivor, the hostages are at the shrine, and Sunga lets Suk know that there are 2 shrines on the island. There are the Gaijin Shrine and the Adazumi Shrine. If they are looking at the distance, Suk believes that the Gaijin Shrine should be their first stop, and Sunga says they can get there in a couple of hours on foot. Suk knows this is not a problem, but the problem is the fact that when they return, they will have to carry with them 15 hostages according to the survivor's report. In addition, Suk can sense a sinister mana beyond the fog, and he is confident that the corrosion creatures on the island will chase them like crazy. Suk is still thinking of a way out when he spots a vehicle in the distance, and everything immediately becomes clear. He asks Sunga if she is a good driver, and Sunga says yes. Moments later, Suk is already begging for his life because Sunga is driving the vehicle as if it were her last day on Earth. She teases Suk, telling him to take the wheel from her if he doesn't like the way she drives. Suk tells her to forget it, and he leaps onto the top of the vehicle, ready to take on the monsters that are already chasing them. Suk whips out an arrow sling and hurls it at the monsters. This takes out a bunch of monsters, and by pulling it back, it still does the same. Just then, Suk notices that monsters are already leaping towards them from the left, and he warns Sunga. Sunga shows just how much of a crazy driver she is as she maneuvers in the most dangerous possible way to get rid of the monsters. Sunga drives the bus on 2 wheels to get the monsters away from them, and it is at this point that Suk wishes that he were the one driving. As they cut through the lonely roads, the monsters stay on their track, trailing them just as ants go after sugar. Not long after this, they arrive, and Sunga mentions the monsters behind them, but Suk tells her not to worry, because he is going to handle them. Sunga drives the bus into the shrine, and Suk immediately unleashes the paradox flame to block the shrine's entrance, consuming whatever monster comes close. Moments later, they find the hostages where they are tied. Sunga walks up to them to introduce herself, but instead of celebrating that they have been saved, the hostages start to act in the most weird way. Tears run down their faces as they urge Sunga to run away, and Sunga wonders why she is being warned. Unknown to her, a giant samurai monster has appeared behind her, ready to cut her down. Fortunately for her, Suk is able to block the samurai's attack, and Suk tells Sunga to get the survivors into the car while he handles the samurai. A fierce battle immediately ensues between the samurai and Suk. The samurai looks towering as he tries to cut Suk down, but even with the height difference, Suk is not scared. Suddenly, Sunga appears out of nowhere and hits the samurai with the vehicle, knocking him to the ground. With the samurai on the ground, Suk commends Sunga's ingenuity, but she just tells him to get in. Suk ends up staying on top of the vehicle, while the hostages are safely tucked in the vehicle. The journey is going smoothly until they realize that the monsters are waiting for them ahead. Suk also notices that the samurai is still alive even after being hit by a car. With a ton of monsters in their path, Suk tells Sunga to give him her sword. Sunga is surprised to hear this because asking a swordsman for their sword is a huge insult. Suk then asks her which one she prefers between her honor and saving the hostages. Sunga has no choice but to surrender her sword and Suk grabs it, ready to put it to use. Surprisingly, there is a weird device on his wrist, and even though Suk didn't want to use it too soon, he realizes that he has no choice. It turns out that the glove was inside the box that was given to him on the island after defeating the core. It wasn't just any glove because it could gather mana from the atmosphere. When Suk first saw it, he believed that it was meant to supplement one's mana. However, to Suk, it was more than that. It turns out that the maximum mana storage capacity of the glove is 5 minutes. During these 5 minutes, he has what it takes to be strong just like Sion. With the monsters trying to block their path, Suk holds his spear and sword in preparation to unleash a devastating attack. Suk releases his overwhelming attack on the monsters, cutting them all down in one fell swoop. Sunga is left in shock and disbelief because she can't believe what just happened in front of her. Since the path is now clear, Suk tells Sunga to head to the port without looking back. As the journey continues, Suk is surprised to find out that there is no end to the corrupted monsters. They just keep coming after them, and Sunga tells Suk that it would be better for them to get out and handle the monsters because the car is already at its limit. However, Suk tells her to keep driving, and just then, they cross a strange barrier that surprisingly keeps the monsters on the other side. All the monsters find it hard to cross the barrier while the vehicle strolls away easily. Sunga is left in shock, and she looks around to try to find out why the monsters are suddenly coming after them. She spots a shining symbol on the wall, leaving her to wonder if it is because of the symbol. Sunga remembers that before they made their move, Suk had carved the symbol there, saying it was a protective formation geometry. Sunga asked him what it was, and he replied that it was a method that repels monsters. Sunga was curious, and she asked him where he learned it, but Suk let her know that she could never understand even if he told her. The simple reason is that he learned the skill while he was still in the other world. Now in the present day, Sunga asks Suk if the method can repel any monster, but Suk says no. He lets her know that the barrier doesn't work on the real monsters. Suk is telling Sunga this when the samurai crosses the barrier as if there is nothing there. The samurai's right eye starts to glow, and the red laser catches up to the vehicle. Sunga immediately recognizes this, saying it is called the mind's eye. Suk is confused by this, but he knows for sure that the surrounding atmosphere has turned grim. He is not threatened by this, but suddenly, he notices that Sunga is already shaking from this. Sunga mentions that mind's eye is the ability to predict an opponent's attacks. She reveals that even for skilled masters, it is a difficult technique. Seeing how shaky Sunga is, Suk urges her not to be afraid because techniques like the mind's eye are just all tricks. Suk then tells Sunga to watch him closely because he is about to teach her how to deal with situations like this. Suk's eyes start to glow, and suddenly, the samurai starts to sense fear, causing him to start swinging his weapon alone. Suk then casually walks in the direction of the samurai, telling Sunga that the skill is something that can be acquired from experience. Basically, the technique reacts to hostility or fear. Since the samurai can't sense this, he just stands there, trying to look tough. Suk lets Sunga know that several skills, like mind's eye, hard sword, and even the state of selflessness, are brothers. Suk walks up to the samurai with no hostility in him, and he easily cuts him down in one move. The samurai is shattered from Suk's strike, and Suk casually tells Sunga that all the techniques that he mentioned are nothing special. He mentions that the illusion named enlightenment is terrifying because one gets excited by a special name and decides not to push further again. Suk lets Sunga know that what matters on the battlefield doesn't need a special name. Suk reveals that he is able to confidently say this now because he had to sacrifice a lot to escape the trap. Suk tells Sunga that the samurai is actually strong because he got hit by a car and survived, but it is a pity that his ultimate technique, which he's relying on, is nothing but the mind's eye. After hearing all of these, Sunga is thrown into a state of self-reflection, asking herself what she managed to achieve in the subjugation. Sunga immediately realizes that she can't learn the way she wants with half-hearted determination. Since she has a precious goal to pursue, she humbly asks Suk to teach her for real this time around. Suk is surprised by her request because he is already teaching her, but Sunga tells him that what she wants is direct guidance, not advice. Sunga says she has already seen how weak she is and the need for her to get stronger really fast. Suk asks her the reason for this, and she reveals that she wants to end Club Shaddai with her own hands. It turns out that Club Shaddai is among the 8 worst corrosion rifts in the world, and it was famous for swallowing the Himalayas in a single breath. Suk knows that her goal is bigger than usual, and he asks her if she is doing it for revenge. Sunga confirms this, saying she is doing it to get vengeance for her family. She then brings out a card, telling Suk that she is not asking him to teach her for free. Suk checks out the card and realizes that it belongs to the KY Group with a market cap of 257 trillion. Sunga mentions that it is the corporation that her family owns, and Suk is shocked to find out that Sunga is the daughter of a prominent family. She mentions that the owner of the company is her grandfather, but she gave up on the succession competition. Suk figures out that Sunga might find herself in the succession battle again if she does well as a hunter. Suk then asks her what she wants exactly, and Sunga asks him to make her the best. Promising to give him elixirs in return, she lets him know that she is going to get him things that are hard to get, like elixirs not released through general distribution channels. Since Suk is also looking to get stronger, Sunga tells him that it will become possible for him with the type of elixirs she is going to provide for him. Suk realizes that Sunga won't even believe him if he tells her that he has already reached the realm that he wanted to before. The main reason he was striving to get strong was to return to Earth the way it was before. Suk then shakes Sunga's hands to tell her that she has a deal. He gives her a list of the things he wants, and suggests that they take the hostages to the hospital first. After dropping the hostages at the hospital, Sunga asks the doctor how long it is going to take for them to recover, and since there are 7 patients with nutritional deficiencies, the doctor tells the 2 that it would take at least a week before conversation is possible. The doctor assures the 2 that they will be the first to know when the hostages wake up, so it is imperative that they allow them to rest. Suk agrees with the doctor, and he calls Sunga to follow him because their training starts immediately. Once they are in a place where they can train, Suk decides to ask Sunga a question before they start. He asks her if she thinks she can dodge his spear if he swings it with full power. Sunga nervously replies that it is going to be difficult, since there is a huge skill gap between them after all. However, Suk lets her know that she can actually dodge it if she uses her senses to the absolute limit possible. He tells her that she has to see with her eyes, hear with her ears, smell the scent, and feel with her skin. Once she is done with all these, she is expected to fight in the realm of consciousness, not unconsciousness. After explaining all of these, Suk decides that it is time to test her out. Before Sunga even knows what is happening, Suk has disappeared, and Sunga is disoriented in trying to locate Suk. In no time, Suk appears behind her, pointing his spear at her neck, while telling her that she just got it all wrong because she was too slow. He explains that her senses come first, and thoughts come in later. He tells her that in combat there is no time to think because she has to accept the senses as they are and move. He lets her know that the senses she hasn't mastered will only deceive her in battle. After he is done explaining again, Suk suggests that they move on to the practical aspect. Meanwhile, there is a security dude watching them practice, and the dude is stunned. Even when his friend shows up to watch, they are both left dumbfounded. The ground being used as a training spot is left totally decimated by the two as they cross swords like maniacs. Suk makes sure to make life hard for Sunga so she can get strong as fast as she can. As the battle continues, Suk leaps into the air, ready to deliver a powerful strike that even Sunga realizes she couldn't dodge. Just as the attack is about to land, the security guys call Suk, telling him that one of the survivors just woke up. Suk then decides to end the first training session there because it appears that Sunga has been able to learn how to block a bit. Sunga watches in horror because she can't believe that everything she has gone through so far is considered the first training session. Upon entering the medical facility, Suk asks the survivor if he is fine, and he says yes. He then reveals that a truck came to where he was held captive, and strange people got out of the truck. Sunga asks him if these people were other hostages, but he says no, revealing that they were too calm to be hostages. In addition to this, he notices that the monsters were not aggressive toward them, and it even looked like the monsters were helping them out. He reveals that a few hostages were picked up and moved to the truck. When Suk hears this, he finally realizes what he has been trying to understand. He has been wondering the strange reason why there were just 7 hostages. Suk then asks the survivor about the dude who escaped, but the survivor tells him that it wasn't an escape. Apparently the bad guys intentionally let them go, and this revelation shocks Sunga to her bones. After the interview with the dude, Suk and Sunga finally understand what they are dealing with. Suk says he has been wondering how a civilian was able to escape easily from a place he and Sunga had a hard time entering. Sunga then asks Suk if he thinks coming for the mission was a trap on its own. Suddenly, Suk speaks out coldly, asking how dare the bad guys pull such a dirty trick. Sunga is totally confused because she doesn't know why Suk is angry. She doesn't know if it is because the enemy is underestimating him or because they used human lives to draw him in. The two then ask the survivor if there is anything else he can tell them, and he reveals that on the waist of the person who got out of the truck, there was a cat mascot. Later on, Sunga is able to figure this out, and when Suk asks her how she did it, she reminds him that his cell phone is not for decoration. In Suk's defense, he tells Sunga that commoners like himself get hit with a huge internet bill once they press the internet button. Sunga cannot believe that the dude is still referring to the early 2000s. Moments later, they run into the dude that they are looking for. The dude has a face full of piercings, and Suk casually mocks him, asking him if he used a sewing machine to patch his ugly face. However, deep down, Suk can see that the dude is no ordinary person, and the dude even acts all tough as he welcomes Suk and Sunga to the big stage. The dude then introduces himself as Kim Ji-yeon, telling them that he will be taking them alive. Suk wonders what he means by this, and he decides to show them instead. He grabs a dude half-beaten, and throws him into the rift behind him. Sunga is shocked to see this, and she believes that the people thrown into the rift won't be able to get out until the rift is destroyed, but suddenly, the dude thrown into the rift crawls back outside, and he has already been transformed. However, Ji-yeon is not especially pleased with the dude's transformation because he looks really weak. Just with a kick, he sends the dude flying into the distance. Sunga is terrified when she sees this, leaving her to wonder if the bad guys are planning to also turn them into rift creatures. Ji-yeon boasts about this, saying sacrificing normal people hasn't given them the best of results. And the moment he says this, it dawns on the two that the bad guys weren't taking money from hostages, but were carrying out experiments with them. Ji-yeon tells the two that he really doesn't care about them, but because of the great cause and his boss, he is going to explain it just once. He reveals that he and his people are the descendants of Dangun. Apparently, their sole purpose is to maintain and strengthen the influence that South Korea currently holds, so that no one can mess with them. After he is done explaining, he stomps on the floor to unleash a massive wave that sends cars into the air. Ji-yeon then kicks the car toward the two, but Sunga comes in clutch, cutting the car in half. Suk prepares to engage the dude while reminding him that their country is already a superpower, but the dude disagrees, saying it is not enough. Ji-yeon dashes toward them, saying they are going to take the nation to heights where no one would even dare to look down on them, so that they can make it an absolute superpower. He leaps into the air, aiming to land a dropkick on Suk. He reminds Suk of all the bad times that they have been required to pay tributes in the past and even bow their heads in shame. As he engages Suk in a fight, he talks about how he wants them to return every single humiliation that they have suffered. While exchanging blows with Ji-yeon, Suk figures out that he is a Taekwondo black belt. And he is pretty fast, even though he is not armed. Suk soon gets kicked in the chest, sending him flying into the distance. With Ji-yun's last attack, he realizes that he is fast, but his power is actually Suk actually understands where the dude is coming from, because if all corrosion rifts disappear, it would be hard for Korea to maintain its current position. Suk ultimately figures out that the dude and his squad have no intention of saving the world, and he confirms this. Suk reminds him that countless people are on the verge of death, which means they are supposed to be a priority, but Ji-yun berates them, saying they don't know anything. He mentions that they have already found a way to control the rifts. The moment Suk hears this, he realizes that being able to control the rifts has totally changed the dynamics of things, because if they can, they won't have to suffer the way they are. Suk then asks for a timeout, telling the dude that he is already thinking of cooperating with him. He asks him to what extent they can control the rift, and if his reply is good enough, he is going to hand over Sanga to him. Sanga is shocked when she hears this, and Ji-yun speaks up, saying they have succeeded in controlling the rift just enough. Suk stops him immediately, saying that what he means by just enough is that there is no complete control yet. Suk scolds him, telling him that he talks big, but he is trash when it comes to showing results. Suk calls Ji-yun and his gang a group of thugs who have no idea what they are doing. This pisses Ji-yun off, and he lunges toward them with a powerful kick. Suk barely dodges the attack, and it shatters the ground where the dude landed. Suk realizes that he might have triggered the dude in a way that he didn't want. He was only trying to stall for time to replenish some mana, because the bar on the glove is already down to 1. Suk figures out that the best thing he can do in his current position is to engage Ji-yun in a war of attrition. Ji-yun dashes towards Suk, but Sanga comes to intercept him. Ji-yun teases her, saying he believes she was standing in the rear because she is scared. With the lightning aura emerging from her body, Ji-yun teases her, saying she has some level of courage at least. Suk then urges Sanga to stay back, telling her that she can't handle the dude, but Sanga replies that she can see Suk's glove's remaining battery. She figures out that Suk needs time, and she asks him how much time he needs. Suk replies that he needs 5 minutes, and Sanga whips out a bottle of elixir, telling Suk to leave the fight to her. Sanga starts to glow from the elixir's effect, and Suk is worried that she might but Sanga tells him not to worry because the elixirs are for emergencies, and they are currently in an emergency. Suk then urges her to last for 5 minutes, promising to end the fight after that. As Sanga prepares to risk her life, she tells Suk to make it count when the time comes. A fierce battle ensues between the two, causing Sanga to put everything she has into the fight. As the battle mode thickens, she manages to land a vertical slash on Ji-yun's, leaving her to pause to see if she was able to take him down. However, Ji-yun appears behind her and kicks her so hard that she is sent flying through the air with blood pouring out of her mouth. Just before she hits the ground, Suk finishes charging up and grabs her. With a calm and cold voice, Suk asks Ji-yun if he is finally ready to die. Ji-yun is shocked because he can sense the mana increase in the dude, and he wonders how he did it, since there is no way he could gather that much mana in such a short time frame. Ji-yun is confused, leaving him to wonder if Suk was hiding his true strength all that time. Suk asks Ji-yun why he is acting so surprised, because he is only following the same, just as his piercings. The dude is shocked when he realizes that Suk figured him out, and Suk tells him that only an idiot wouldn't know. Suk tells Ji-yun that he is leaking mana all over the place because he is spamming power that he can't handle. However, thanks to his carelessness, he was able to recover his paradox flame. Ji-yun thinks Suk is talking trash because there is no method to absorb wasted mana. However, before he knows it, Suk has appeared behind him, telling him that he doesn't have to know because he is just about to die. Suk unleashes his 16-hit combo on the dude, slashing him in so many ways while unleashing paradox flame on him. Ji-yun is shocked when he realizes that he can't breathe and can't even move his muscles. Suk commends the dude for trying to stand even though he has burned away all of his muscle strength. Realizing that he is about to die, the dude begs for his captain to save him. Suddenly, a projectile comes flying at Suk from above, and Suk manages to sense this before it is too late. He pulls out his spear, blocking the attack. The attack seems to have come from Ji-yun's captain, who is standing on the rooftop. He has a mask on, and there is a hood covering his head. He commends Suk for being able to block the attack because he was looking to crush his wrist before. Suk is curious about who the dude is, and deep down, he can already sense that the dude is Ji-yun's captain. Even though Suk doesn't want to admit it, he realizes that the dude is at least twice as strong as Seon. After taking a closer look, he quickly corrects him, realizing that the dude is 4 times stronger than Seon. The captain then taunts Suk, asking him if he doesn't fear death. Suk calmly replies that he doesn't fear death because he knows the dude would have killed him if he wanted to. Since the captain is holding back and killing him, he asks him if what he is interested in is the black flame he uses. By displaying the black flames, the ones burning Ji-yun get even stronger, causing him severe pain. He begs to be saved, and the captain orders Suk to extinguish the flames, telling him he won't repeat himself. Suk realizes that Ji-yun's mana was already depleted, but the captain has been keeping him alive with his own mana. In addition, he knows that if the arrow the captain shot had aimed for his head instead of his wrist, he would have died. But the captain intentionally didn't do this. Suk has no choice but to release Ji-yun from the shackles of his flames. Before Ji-yun can even fall, the captain reaches in the blink of an eye to grab him. This further scares Suk because he can see just how fast the dude is. The captain berates Suk, telling him that he just ruined Ji-yun's life because he will have to live the rest of his life in a wheelchair. The captain then draws his bow, telling Suk that it is true that he would like to take him alive, but he doesn't need to be in perfect condition. Suk then tells the captain to go ahead with what he wants to because there is no way he is becoming his puppet. Seeing how stubborn Suk is, the captain decides to withdraw because he still wants to know more about the black flames that Suk is using. Before vanishing, the captain tells Suk that one day, he will also be under his control. After he is gone, Suk realizes that he has gotten himself entangled with someone with a really nasty temper. Sanji then walks up to Suk, saying it appears that the bad guys are after his unique skill. Suk confirms this, but lets her know that he has no idea why they are after his skill. Sanji then asks Suk why the bad guy didn't just take her as a hostage, and Suk replies that they might know about her background. However, Sanji doesn't think terrorists would think about something like this. Suk then tells her to think about it carefully because the terrorists might even be receiving support from the Korean government. Suk urges Sanji not to tell anyone about it, but Sanji reminds him that she doesn't know how to lie that well. Suk suggests that they leave everything till later and deal with the rift in front of them first. However, Suk tells Sanji to stay back because he is going in alone. He urges her to rest and recover till he gets back, and he dives into the rift. Suk lands in the Grade 2 rift and finds an undead castle right in the center of it all. He walks toward the castle, and he can sense some really dangerous energy emanating from the castle. Without being told, Suk figures out that the core of the corrosion is behind the door. Suk admits to himself that he must be careful or else he is going to die if he lets down his guard. He pushes the door open, and standing in the distance is a large pot, leaving Suk to wonder if the pot is the core. Suk is surprised because it is different from what he expected, but suddenly, a hand grabs his leg from behind. The dude looks really terrible and in pain as he begs Suk to save him because his legs are gone. Suddenly, a tentacle emerges from the pot and throws the helpless dude into the pot. Moments later, the dude emerges from the pot, and he is already transformed into an undead. Suk immediately figures out that the pot has been the thing creating the undead. This pisses Suk off so much that he almost throws up. Suddenly, he hears a chilling voice appear in the room, regarding Suk as another sacrifice, but admits that Suk is a bit different from the others. The image behind the voice soon shows up, and it turns out to the core, which is a swordsman. The dude then whips out his sword, and he urges Suk to do the same because he is going to temper his blade with his blood. Suk panics at the appearance of the men because the pressure from his body is overwhelming. This just shows how strong the captain is because he was able to subdue the powerful swordsman, whom he is staring at in fear. Suk panics that there must be someone else stronger than the captain. Suk is lost in thought when the swordsman charges toward him and almost cuts his head off, but he barely dodges. This tells Suk that the dude he is dealing with is pretty strong. However, Suk decides to go all out from the beginning before the enemy can figure out his weakness. Suk charges at the core with a powerful strike, which he aims to end the fight with, but to his shock, the enemy blocks his maximum output with just his blade. As if that is not scary enough, Suk is worried that he didn't even see the dude block the attack. Before Suk can react to what is happening around him, the enemy has struck him, slicing his body with his sword. Suk is shocked and scared when he realizes that the enemy is faster than he even thought. The swordsman, however, commends Suk for making him miss his vital points. Since Suk is acting all tough, the swordsman decides to test him with something more dangerous. He delivers powerful and fast cuts to Suk's body, causing him to fall to his knees. Seeing just how much worse the situation is, Suk realizes that he has no choice but to bring out the paradox flame. However, he has an issue with this, because the enemy is not a living being, so paradox has no meaning as an attack. Suk is left wondering what he is supposed to do, but he manages to get back on his feet with paradox flame. The swordsman is surprised that Suk still has the strength to stand up, leaving him to wonder what he must do to make him fall. Before Suk knows it, he gets cut multiple times again. This time around, it gets worse because every muscle in his body is torn apart, and Suk almost loses consciousness. Fortunately for him, the muscles above his shoulders can still move, and he figures out that using paradox flame to boost his recovery and rapidly heal his torn muscles. By quickly doing this, Suk is able to get behind the enemy, and he believes that he finally has a chance. Suk makes his move, but to his utmost shock, the enemy vanishes right in front of him and appears behind him. The enemy makes fun of Suk, telling him that he is too slow and strikes Suk down. However, he refuses to kill Suk, and Suk uses the opportunity to dash backwards. The enemy teases Suk, saying he missed, but Suk screams at him not to mess with him because he could have definitely killed him if he wanted to. Suk asks the enemy if he is toying with him out of pity. The enemy admits that he could have killed Suk, but he is now a changed person. He mentions that at the moment, he cannot even recall his name, and most of his memories from life have been lost. He reveals that the gaps in his technique caused by memory loss were really deadly. He reveals that after he was defeated, shackles were placed on him. Suk realizes that the dude is in the opposite state of his situation because the body remains, but the experience and memories are almost gone. Suk figures out that the shackles on the dude's neck are what the captain and Jiyeon are talking about. The enemy starts talking of how much he has lost from his name, down to why he even became a swordsman. He says all that remains is resentment that is steeped in sorrow. Just then, the swordsman goes through a sudden transformation, and Suk realizes that the dude's resentment has grown even thicker. However, he has lost a significant amount of his technique and experience. Suk believes that he has a chance at winning if the dude fails to kill him in one strike. Suk then decides that it is time he unleashes his full power if he wants to defeat the swordsman. The swordsman is surprised when he realizes that all of Suk's wounds have been healed with the black flames covering his body. Suk then places his hand on the ground, and the swordsman talks about his surprise to find out that Suk has a unique ability. However, he can see that the flames are burning something else, and Suk commends him for the sharp intuition. Suk explains that the black flames burn concepts. Even though the black flame might appear to possess infinite destructive power, it isn't actually the case at that moment. It turns out that the greater the quantity and scope of the concept, the more mana it demands. Since large applications are harder to control, Suk knows that he must be careful not to get swept away by the backlash. Suk knows that he wouldn't have needed to worry about control if it were from back then. He has been using the flame with minimal risk, but this time around, it appears that he can't be picky about it. Suk then tells the swordsman that he is going to burn away all the durability in the area. The swordsman is confused by this, and Suk lets him know that he is not ready to explain himself. Without hesitation, Suk dashes toward the dude with his spear. He manages to push the enemy back, and Suk realizes that he can use the whole thing to his advantage since he already figured out that the swordsman has a limit. Seeing how serious the situation has become, the swordsman suggests that they take a fierce battle ensues between the two, and they go at each other like crazy. They destroy buildings, shatter poles, to try to get each other. Suk soon gets overwhelmed, and his spear even gets cut in half. The enemy then unleashes a powerful slash that should have ended Suk, but doesn't hit. Suk manages to break through a boulder while dashing toward the enemy at a blind. He screams like a maniac before hitting the swordsman with his weapon. This unleashes recurrent attacks that send the swordsman flying backwards. Seeing just how powerful Suk's attack is, the swordsman is forced to ask him who he is. The dude is still trying to regenerate from Suk's last attack when he appears from above, delivering perfect laser cuts to his body to shatter his body. The swordsman screams in pain as he loses the majority of his life force, but Suk is not done. As he comes at the dude again, the two end up cutting each other, but Suk's cut goes in deeper, slashing the dude diagonally. The two don't want to give up as they scream out in pain, and this takes Suk back to when he was in the other world. Someone had asked him what he would do if he met an enemy equal to him. Suk answered that one of them would not be coming out alive. Now in the rift, Suk's powerful attack is able to land a devastating hit on the swordsman, even though it took everything he had. Nonetheless, Suk is able to smile in the end because he is the strongest. As the swordsman disappears, the rift gives Suk a reward, just like when he defeated the Grade 2 core. Suk is glad that the reward always pops up, just like it does in the other world. He checks out the box and he finds a spearhead, leaving him confused about how he is supposed to use it. However, he wastes no time figuring it out as he throws it into the distance before recalling it. He realizes that he can use mana to extend its length. He remembers that rewards are said to be dropped based on the number of people who entered the rift, and he wishes he had told Sanga to follow him while she stood somewhere safe, so she could get one of the rewards. He then notices that the enemy's sword didn't vanish and he decides to take it. Moments later, Suk returns to the surface to find Sanga sleeping. He throws the sword at her to wake her up, and she is surprised because it doesn't look like something she has seen before. Suk tells her that he found it on his way, and he assures her that it is a fine blade because the person who wielded it was no joke. Sanga checks it out and she agrees that the sword is really nice. She asks him where he got it, but an exhausted Suk tells Sanga not to worry about it. All he wants to know is if she had enough rest while he was gone. Before he can say anything else, Suk also passes out. Sanga is surprised, but this just tells her that Suk is also human. Because of how dangerous a Grade 2 rift is, everyone went wild when they heard that he had cleared it alone. The public starts going crazy about this because even capable hunters find it hard to do alone. His face is plastered everywhere for the public to see him, making him the #1 celebrity. Later on, Suk wakes up in the hospital room and realizes that he can't even step outside because there is a crowd waiting for him. Moments later, a lady wearing glasses entered the room and she introduced herself as just Soo-jong. Apparently, she is from the Secretariat of Embargo Tower. Suk tells the lady to come in while thanking her for covering his hospital bills. However, he lets her know that he is surprised because he has never heard of the name Embargo Tower before. Suk replies that they are not well known to the public because their main field is ICT. Suk tells him to report if there is anything serving as an inconvenience, but Suk says there is nothing. However, he lets her know that he is curious about something. He tells Suk that he is aware that the hospital bill is not cheap, which means the organization wants something from him. Without wasting time, Suk asks the lady what it is that they want from him. Before saying anything, Suk gives Suk a cake to eat. Once they are comfortable, she tells him about the shield generator. She mentions that it is a device that creates a barrier to defend against corrosion creatures. Basically, the organization wants Suk to help transport this important device. Suk tells Suk that it is still a prototype made in the US, but if it turns out to be successful and it is mass-produced, it will bring some relief to areas that hunters can't reach. Suk lets him know that it is a crucial mission that could potentially change the fate of humanity. Suk then figures out that it is a large-scale request and Suk confirms this, saying they are currently checking if there are other hunters who are willing to cooperate. Suk asks her about the other hunters and she mentions that Janabe already agreed to help out. When Suk hears this, he realizes that the whole thing is bigger than he expected. Sojong mentions that they will be transporting the shield generator by train. After they leave Vladivostok and it arrives in the Netherlands, they are going to use a chopper to transport it to the UK for a test run. Suk asks her why they are stressing themselves to go to the UK, and she reveals that one of the Great Rifts, Ristorante, is located in Naples, Italy. Apparently, the influence of this rift reaches everywhere from Europe to North Africa. She mentions that the only safe place left is the UK because it is slightly protected by the sea. She reveals that Europe is currently in a state of anarchy and governments are failing to function properly. It turns out that hunter companies have seized control of various regions like warlords. Because of this, it appears that they will also be transporting relief supplies at the request of international organizations. This immediately tells Suk that there will be a number of people targeting the train. Sojong then asks Suk if he has traveled outside the country before, but he says no. He lets her know that the mission will be his first time out of the country, and Sojong tells him that it is likely they will encounter dangerous situations out there. Suk is confused that she is using a plural term, and she reveals that she will be tagging along on the mission too. Suk then tells Sojong that he would like Sungut to accompany them. He assures Sojong that Sungut is a trusted friend, and Sojong doesn't hesitate before accepting Suk's request. Suk is happy with the whole deal because it would make his influence even bigger. Later on, Suk heads to the roof where a helicopter is waiting for him, and he is surprised that the association president is the one who got it done. The man lets him know that soloing the Grade 2 rift changes his perspective on things, and he assures him that the association would do its best to guarantee his activities to the fullest. Deep down, Suk is glad that he proved his strength with his skills because this has made things easier. At the same time, he wonders if the chairman knows about Ji-yeon and his people. He is curious to know if the president would want the reality that befallen Earth to continue or end. The moment Suk steps into the helicopter, he is surprised to find Suk waiting for him. Suk commends him, saying stories about him have spread all through, and it would be easier to even find someone who doesn't know him than to find someone who does. Suk then asks her where they are heading, and she reveals that they are going to an army base. Suk asks her why they are going there, and she reveals that the South Korean military is also planning to participate in the request. Suk understands that every country would be willing to participate because if it turns out to be a success, the reliance on hunters for national defense would decrease. However, Suk doesn't think South Korea would like it. Suk then asks Seon if she knows the organization called the Descendants of Dangun, and Seon confirms this, saying that they are a terrorist group. Suk mentions that he ran into them while he was handling the mission on Sahima Island. Seon tells him that the Descendants of Dangun, composed entirely of Koreans, have been showing up all over the place, and when hunters are in the middle of clearing a rift, the group suddenly pops up and interferes. Suk adds his insight on this, and just like always, Seon gives him a candy, leaving the dude to wonder why Seon is doing this. Just then, Seon asks Suk if he has left Korea before, and Suk is surprised that she is asking him the same question that Soo-young did. Suk casually replies that it is his first time, and Seon tells him that the mission will make him realize a bunch of things. Soon afterward, they arrive at the conference center where the mission brief is being held. The one heading the meeting is a major general who goes by the name On Hunso. The notes containing the mission details are distributed to everyone present in the room, and the general lets them know that what they are to protect is an 80-car train, of which 65 will be used for cargo and other purposes, leaving only 15 cars for the hunters who will be participating in the mission. Apparently Sien will be getting a whole car to herself, and Suk is not entirely surprised about this, since she is the 10th ranked hunter, so they have to treat her differently. Hanso proceeds to say the protection of the precious cargo has been designated to Janabi, the small group of hunters. However, he wants the South Korean military to provide more support because of the distance. Sien cuts him off, rejecting the offer, telling the general that the fact that they are responsible for the shield generator alone already puts a huge target on the cargo. Because of this, Sien doesn't want anyone except Janabi to approach the shield generator. The general is intimidated by her aura, and he agrees to this, so they proceed to the next phase. He mentions that a lot of threats are expected on the route, since they are going to be passing through the UK, the Netherlands, and co. Apparently there are a lot of corrosion zones on the route that they are going to take. But there are only 7 locations with high enough threat. He mentions that aside from the corrosion rift creatures, bandits roaming the Siberian region are a threat to contend with. Sien is not entirely pleased with the fact that they have to deal with train robbers as if they are shooting an action movie. Hanso says they have sent letters to the 8 warlords who have established themselves in Europe, but only 3 have given them a proper response, and Suk immediately concludes that the other 5 are enemies. The hunters present in the room are already worried about the dangers that the mission poses, while concluding that it might be a failure. Seeing how the hunters are bickering amongst themselves, Sien cuts in, urging everyone to calm their nerves while assuring them that she is going to make sure that the train gets to its destination safely. On the day of the operation, the train is already prepared to depart from Vladivostok station in Russia. The hunters are on standby to arrange the participants into the various coaches of the train. Suk is forced to walk quite a distance to reach his coach. Surprisingly, Senga is already there, and she reminds Suk of his promise. She lets him know that she is going to hand over the elixir she promised after the mission. Suk expresses his surprise at how she just appeared out of nowhere, and Senga casually replies that she took a luxury car in first class, so he obviously. Suk then realizes that this is the same reason he didn't see Sien, and he admits that being a world-class hunter has its perks. They are in the middle of their discussion when Soo-young shows up. Expressing her surprise at how huge the train is, she asks Suk if he has taken a look around, but Suk lets her know that he just got there too. However, he expresses his surprise that they are putting too much security on the cargo train, which will make it stand out. Soo-young then explains to him that it is made from depleted uranium, which is the same material used in making armored vehicles, so it is actually safer. Suk just goes along with what she said, while also taking comfort in the fact that Sien is participating in the mission, so unless something goes horribly wrong, they should arrive safely. Minutes after the journey begins, they already come under attack from corrosion rifts, forcing Suk to step in. The hunters who are up on the coaches that got attacked first are already bruised from the small fry's corrosion rifts attacking. Suk does his absolute best to keep the monsters at bay, since he appears to be the only useful hunter around. Apparently, Sien is currently unavailable, and this is because the Trans-Siberian Railway is damaged. So, for the train to run smoothly, the operation and railway repairs must be done at the same time. Since the personnel repairing the railway can't fight off the corrosion creatures on their own, Sien is forced to stay by their side to protect them while they do their job. Suk is not impressed with the commander's idea to put their most powerful asset on personnel protection. After fighting the monsters for a while, and with no sign that they are reducing, Suk realizes that they have a long day ahead of them. Meanwhile, in Khabarovsk, in Russia, an ugly-faced warlord, Nikolai Baranov, is seen dragging a beaten-up and bloodied monster across the cold white. He soon comes across a weird dude who has come to see him. Suddenly, the monster regains consciousness and lunges at the warlord. The warlord takes his time to aura farm just to let the monster get closer before delivering a powerful punch to blow the monster's head away. After brutally dispatching the monster, the warlord turns to his unexpected visitor, Lee Hai-yoon, who mentions that he is there to give him a tap. Hai-yoon talks about how amazed he is at how Nikolai dealt with the monster, and Nikolai mentions that he actually caught the monster for dinner, but it had the guts to regain consciousness after he had knocked it out. Hai-yoon is surprised that such an ugly monster is what Nikolai plans to eat, and he concludes that his peers in Korea are really living the life. Nikolai asks Hai-yoon which task he plans to give him, while reminding him that he is not the money freak type. Hai-yoon assures him that he is aware of his interests, and he reveals that a train will be passing through the route very soon. Nikolai doesn't believe this because the Trans-Siberian Railway was already destroyed ages ago. Hai-yoon clears his misconception, telling him that among those who have awakened mana are some who can quickly repair broken things as long as they have the materials. Nikolai is shocked to learn that the train is actually running while being repaired. Nikolai asks him what they are moving, and Hai-yoon tells him that this is none of his business, but he should be more concerned about who is moving it. Nikolai excitedly asks him who is moving the train, and Hai-yoon tells him that it is none other than Se-yoon, the candy. Nikolai is shocked to hear this, and he asks Hai-yoon if he already has a way of dealing with Se-yoon. Hyun assures him that they have this covered, and Nikolai smiles through his teeth, hoping to have as much fun as he can, since he will be robbing a train being protected by Seyun. Hyun quickly clears this up, telling him that it's not a case of robbery because Seyun is protecting something valuable on the train. Nikolai then asks if he is allowed to blow it to smithereens, but Hyun tells him that this is also not the case. Hyun lets him know that his task is to infiltrate the train car and connect the terminal he is holding to the equipment inside. Nikolai, being the ugly barbarian he is more interested in smashing things, and he asks Hyun if he is free to smash the cargo once he is done and Hyun tells him that he is free to do whatever he wants afterward. With this, Nikolai excitedly accepts the job as he gladly reveals how he plans to kill all the other hunters right in Seyun's presence. Back on the train, the other hunters who are supposed to be supporting Suk are left watching in awe because they can't believe their eyes that Suk is truly a rookie hunter. In fact, they believe he is more of a monster than the monsters that they are supposed to be killing. Suk, on the other hand, is disappointed by how weak, even though it is still early, they are already exhausted, which is not something to be proud of. Suk concludes within himself that it is a solo battle more or less, but just then he hears a familiar voice telling the hunters to get back on their feet because they are not done, so they can't let down their guard. It turns out to be Sanga, and Suk teases her about how much of a show-off she is. Suk is pleased that at least he has someone who is useful among the ranks to rely on. Suddenly, the train shakes vigorously, and Suk wonders if they ran into an avalanche. Just then, reports come in from the control center, telling the hunters that they have run into an obstacle, but the train will proceed as planned. Suddenly, Sien cuts in, ordering the train to come to a halt because they have been ambushed by the enemy. Out of nowhere, a massive energy blast comes flying towards them, and Sien quickly jumps into action. She holds out her greatsword to block the energy blast, and looking into the distance, Suk and Sanga are shocked to see a large number of forces approaching the train. Sanga is left questioning how they got there, and Suk scolds her for not reading the mission brief. He tells her that there is only one person capable of doing something like this near Khabarovsk, and it is Nikolai, the warlord. Sien is calling out orders when some weird talismans close in on her, surrounding her to create an energy field. Sanga notices the sudden silence from her, and she asks her if something is wrong. Sien then reveals the sad situation in which she has found herself, and this is the fact that she has been sealed. The control center then tells all the hunters of Sien's unavailability, and this shocks the scaredy cat hunters. The control center lets them know that the enemy number is estimated to be around 500, which is 10 times their current fighting force. The control room tells the hunters that there is no room for retreat, even though their commander is currently not available. So their task to protect the train still remains. Sien then adds to the instruction, telling her comrades to hunt down the bad guy. Suk is the first to take the initiative, and he jumps down from the train with the intention of meeting the bad guys halfway. As he leaps off the train, he tells Sanga to follow him, and the other hunters are left in shock at how crazy Suk is, because it is a 50 against 500 situation. Nonetheless, the hunters know that they have no choice because they can't allow rookies to do their job for them. Sien assures her comrades that she will do her best to return to battle as soon as she can. When Sien finds the seal shows himself, and it turns out to be Hyun, Hyun tells Sien not to delude herself because it is not going to be easy for her to break. Hyun introduces himself to Sien, telling her that he is one of the descendants of Dangun. He proceeds to talk about their family branch, just to make a point that he is Sien's cousin. Sien ignores him and tries to slash the barrier with her sword, but her sword shatters from just a single strike. Hyun boastfully tells Sien that it is not a seal that breaks that easily, so she should not stress herself. He even suggests that Sien surrenders because she is now out of weapons to use, but Sien cuts in, telling him to stop making such a fuss over one broken sword. Sien taps the ring on her finger to activate its power, and, just then, another great sword appears in her hand. Hyun is genuinely surprised when he sees this, as he wasn't expecting her to bring the ring. It turns out that he knows the ring, which is called the Mirror Ring, and it is a ring that Sien obtained after she cleared a Grade 1 corrosion rift. Apparently, the ring can register exactly one piece of equipment, and the registered item is instantly duplicated the moment it breaks and returns to its owner's hand. Even with an infinite number of weapons at hand, Hyun doesn't think it is efficient for her to keep trying until she breaks the seal. Sien laughs off his ignorant idea as she raises her sword with an overwhelming force. On the battlefield, Nikolai proudly tells Suk and Sanga that they have no chance against him and his men. Thanks to his suit, he is able to leap into the air, so he can look down on Suk and his comrades. He teases them, suggesting that they surrender their weapons because he might just spare their lives. Suk expresses his shock at how Nikolai is able to fly even though he is not sensing any mana from him. Sanga then tells him that the suite is a product of the Predator project that was conducted 10 years ago. Apparently, it was designed so that the user could fight without mana, and to make it cooler, it has a translation feature. Sanga reveals that the South Korean military made a few of the suits for operational tests, but they gave it up because obtaining the materials was too difficult. This leaves Suk wondering why such a powerful weapon would be in the hands of a Russian warlord. Sanga, on the other hand, is worried about the fact that she has to kill people, and this leaves her asking herself if she is really ready. Suk senses her worries, and he tells her that she is free to stay back if she believes that she can't handle killing humans. As they rush towards the enemy forces, Sanga calls Suk's attention to the fact that he has never killed humans, too, but little does she know how many RMC has killed to survive in the other world. Sanga is busy chatting when Suk shows her what he is made of by cleanly slicing off an enemy's head. Sanga stands there in shock, and Suk tells her that she is free to do it if she can. But it is more important to make sure that the guilt doesn't consume her. Suk confidently says the guilt will naturally vanish in a couple of days to a month. Being in a situation where he has to kill humans again reminds our guy of his time in the other world. After a while of cutting down the bad guys, he comes to the sad reality that they have the upper hand because they greatly outnumber them. He comes to the conclusion that there is only one way to turn the tide of battle, and this is to take down the enemy commander, Nikolai. Suk wastes no time turning his attention to Nikolai, and the moment their eyes lock onto each other, Nikolai addresses him like someone he knows. He calls him the rookie from South Korea, and Suk is surprised that Russian thugs already know who he is. He is taking the whole thing slowly when Nikolai makes the first move that almost cuts his head off. Suk barely dodges the strike, and this immediately tells him that Nikolai is strong and fast. He also knows that his suit is pretty tough, so it won't scratch easily, which makes him a tricky opponent to deal with. With Nikolai throwing everything at him, Suk puts the situation into quick perspective and realizes that it would have been hard for him to win if he hadn't gone to Tsushima Island. Before Nikolai knows it, he suddenly gets countered by Suk's attack. He gets sent flying into the distance, and when he lands, he angrily prepares to finish Suk off with everything he has. Suk, on the other hand, notices that Nikolai is not using his full power yet, and he wonders why. He wonders if Nikolai is worried about firing a blast powerful enough to damage the shield generator. At the same time, he remembers that Nikolai had fired a powerful blast at the start of the battle, and this leaves Suk wondering if this is just meant to stop the train. However, this can't be the case, because if Sien didn't block the attack, the train would have been shattered to. This tells Suk that Nikolai and others are aware beforehand of who is coordinating the transportation. Suk can see that everything looks suspicious, from Nikolai, who showed up wearing a Korean military suit, to Hyun, who appeared at the right time to seal Sien. As the fight between the two continues, Suk realizes that there are more than just two suspicious things. Before Nikolai knows it, he gets hit with the paradox flame, and since it is the first time he has seen it, he doesn't know what it is. Suk, on the other hand, is already burning down the suit's durability, and with this, he plans to end the fight as fast as he can. Nikolai frantically throws a powered punch at Suk, aiming to catch him off guard, but he dodges and delivers a 16-hit combo to Nikolai's body. By the time Suk is done with him, Nikolai realizes that there is a crack in his suit. He panics when he sees this, and he starts thinking of falling back to buy himself some time. Nikolai tries to use the diplomatic route by telling Suk to stop attacking so he can help him break the seal placed on Sien. He hasn't even finished his shameless negotiation tactics when Suk delivers a powerful slash that cuts him in half. Suk lets the dude know that he doesn't need his help when it comes to Sien, because he believes in Sien's strength to get herself out of her shackles. With Nikolai defeated, the battle comes to an end, and the hunters roar in celebration. Sien commends Suk's talent, telling him that he went beyond her expectations, and just as she always does, she whips out a candy. Suk gracefully collects the candy while asking Sien if Hyun is one of the descendants of Dangun, and Sien confirms this. She mentions that the dude ran away just as she was able to break the seal, so she couldn't catch up to him. The other hunters are shocked when they see Suk tearing into the candy given to him by Sien. They yell at him, asking him why he would eat the candy, but Suk just stares at them like they're some kind of weirdos, since they would rather keep the candy as a treasure. Sien even talks about how Suk is the only one who would eat because everyone else just collects the candy and brags about how many they have. With this, Suk confirms that Sien is literally a hunter among hunters. Just then, Suk notices that the soldiers are converging on Nikolai's suit to recover it. Since Nikolai was able to get his hands on a tech that belonged, Suk knows he must have needed one of two things, and the first one is a powerful faction that can completely disregard the Korean government. The second is that the Korean military is intentionally condoning Nikolai's actions. Which leaves Suk to wonder if they can really trust the Korean military personnel who are riding with them on the train. Elsewhere, Hyun manages to make it back to the group's hideout, but with a severe migraine because he used too much mana to keep the seal in place. He then reports his failure to their leader, the dude who wields a bow. However, the captain is not pissed as he believes that they will always encounter small failures before they can achieve their goal. The captain tells Hyun not to think about the failure, but to recover and focus on what is ahead. Hyun thanks the men for the words of encouragement, and the captain tells him not to lose his pride. Deep down, the captain is worried that after Ji-hyun was defeated, Hyun has also suffered his fair share of defeat. He is pissed that he wasn't able to figure out Suk's power because he could have just made the decision to kill Suk on the spot. He then makes his way into the secret room where they use for their experiments, which is headed by a quack doctor known as Seo Jaeun-woo. Jaeun-woo is built like a shut-in gamer who doesn't look after himself and just eats all day long. Jaeun-woo asks him why he is there, and the captain asks him about his progress on the project they are working on. Jaeun-woo tells the men that it is possible, but it is only going to take some time. However, he reminds the captain that they need huge resources, and the captain tells him that he doesn't have to worry about this, so he should just continue with what he is doing. Jaeun-woo replies that he would do his best, but says it would have been much better if they were able to figure out the principles behind the shield generator. The captain then tells him that he doesn't have to worry about this because the journey across Siberia is still long. Later on, inside the train command center, they pull together the battle report. It turns out that they ended the battle with 5 dead and 10 injured. Thanks to this, they have basically lost a third of their combat power, thanks to how the battle went. Seo Jaeun-woo then orders that the injured hunters should be given first aid because proper medical treatment is only possible after they reach Warsaw in Poland, so she suggests that they contact them in advance. She asks the team leader who the warlord controlling Poland is, and he mentions that it is a group named Mazurka. Seo Jaeun then tells him to also contact the hunter guild that is affiliated with Mazurka to tell them that they are asking for their cooperation. The dude tells Seo Jaeun that contacting them is not the problem, but he asks her if she thinks the warlords will cooperate. Seo Jaeun replies that they have no choice but to cooperate if they want help from her or Janabi in the future. At the Hunter Guild, a spray, located in Poland, the guild leader, Robert Digjen, receives the message from Seo Jaeun, but he is not ready. The guild members are surprised that Robert is seriously turning down a request from Seo Jaeun, the candy lady. They start talking about the impressive things Seo Jaeun has done, but Robert cuts in, saying she is just one hunter, so there is no sense in jumping into the fire just because one woman asked. To his surprise, a hunter tells him that he is ready to jump into the fire if Seo Jaeun is the one asking. Before Robert knows it, his office is already filled with a ton of hunters, who are there to tell him that if he rejects Seon's offer, he can kiss their contract with the guild goodbye. The support Seon is getting from the hunters shocks Robert, who screams at them, reminding them that Seon is just one hunter. In fact, Robert believes that Seon is no different from him, but this is when the harsh reality of things dawns on him. The hunters quickly clear off his belief, while telling him so many things that Seon has done to directly impact their lives. From those she has saved in a corrosion zone, to those she helped get medical services in Korea, they all have something nice to say about her. Robert's second-in-command sees how bad the situation is, and he lets him know that they have no choice but to do what the hunters want, because if they allow this many people to quit at once, the guild will be in trouble. He suggests that he apologize for what he said and accept Seon's offer. Robert strains in agony as this is the first time he is witnessing the extent of Seon's strength. Seon, on the other hand, is worried about the injured hunters, and she wonders if they will be able to hold on for 5 days until they reach Warsaw. Seon's prayer is that they don't run into further problems. Just then, the control center screams through the radio telling the hunters that slimes are pursuing them so they should all prepare for combat. The hunters hear this and start mobilizing themselves to get to the top of the train, but Seon is worried about the presence of slimes in the area. Seon tries to calm the situation, telling them to get ready to engage the monsters. And Suk asks her what a slime is. Seon reveals that it is a corrosion creature from a Grade 1 corrosion rift that is located in Bratsk, a city nicknamed the Refrigerator. Even Suk is surprised to hear this, since Bratsk is over 600 kilometers from where they are, so they are not supposed to come in contact with the corrosion creatures. Seon leaps onto the train while revealing that the corrosion zone must have expanded in the meantime. Seon admits that dealing with Grade 1 corrosion creatures in their current state is going to be a big problem. Suk asks her if the slimes are that dangerous, and Seon mentions that the slime's body temperature is similar to liquid nitrogen, so if one touches them incorrectly, their equipment will freeze and shatter. However, there is one more thing that calls for concern, and this is the fact that some of the slimes possess mana resistance. This basically means mana attacks won't work on the slimes, and this is proven right when the archers unleash their arrows on the slimes, but no damage is done. The hunters freak out because they fear the train will be overwhelmed if this continues, and even Seon agrees with them that the mission will end up being a failure if this happens. While they are all freaking out, Suk thinks of something, and he collects a bow and arrow from one of the hunters. The hunter tries telling him how to properly use the weapon, but he replies that he would use it whatever way he sees fit. Suk notches the arrow and infuses the paradox flame with the intention of burning away the slime's mana resistance. Suk takes aim and fires the arrow into the slime, and just as he wanted, the flame starts consuming the concept he aimed it at. The hunters are left in complete and total shock at how the slime's mana resistance was broken. Suk knows it would have been much easier if he had covered the entire field next to the train with the paradox flame, but since he is not confident that he can control it, he doesn't want to risk it. Suk hands over the bow, and he tells the hunters that they are free to attack the slime once the flames die down a bit. The hunters are left in shock, and Seon smiles as she remembers that she has seen Suk use the ability before. Since the slime's mana resistance is already broken, Seon doesn't see any reason why the inevitable should be delayed, and she dashes toward one of the slimes. She delivers a powerful slash that cuts the slime in half. After minutes of tearing down the slimes, Seon asks one of the hunters how many slimes are left, and he mentions that there is just one left, which is currently approaching the train. Seon suddenly becomes worse as it jumps up, and the hunters fear that they are going to be crushed by the slime's weight. Seon knows that she can cut down the slime, but because it is way too big, their equipment will be destroyed in no time, so they are going to be crushed while trying to restore their equipment. While thinking of what to do, Suk separates his spear from the handle and hurls it at the incoming slime, shattering it with an overwhelming force. At that moment, everyone present at the scene realizes something important. They could all see that Suk might be able to save the world, and Suk casually turns around, telling Seon that he prefers cola-flavored candy. After the battle, the train continues toward Poland, and during the strategy meeting, the team leader tells them that they are going to be stopping in Warsaw for 3 days to distribute relief supplies to the region. He mentions that the Mazurka warlords and the Hunter Guild contracted with them have promised to cooperate. Seon is relieved to hear this, because they don't have to deal with this, but she wants to know if they have heard anything from the other warlords aside from Mazurka. The dude replies that no other warlord has replied to their request, but Seon tells him to keep trying because they are obviously going to stay in Poland for a couple of days. Not long after this, they arrived in Warsaw, and what Suk saw shocked him. He was told that Poland was one of the better countries, but right at the train station, there are corpses everywhere, and to make it worse, there are no traces of vegetation anywhere. This leaves him wondering if they ate all the edible trees while leaving the inedible ones for heat. In addition, he notices that Seon and the other hunters are just going about their business like it is nothing, which shows that what he is looking at is considered normal in the area. Just then, a warrant officer working for Mazurka, Josef Polanski, approaches Suk with a calm face, asking if he is fine. Josef asks Suk to follow him, so he can show him to his lodgings. Suk is transported via a luxurious limousine, but the whole environment is completely upside down. The roads are bad, and most of the buildings are destroyed, just like a proper dystopian world. Since he is the only one going to where his lodging is, and others are going their own way, Suk figures out that the lodgings are assigned based on rank. Josef then creates a conversation with Suk, telling him that he has a proposal, since he is currently a freelance hunter who is not loyal to Korea. The dude asks Suk what he thinks about working in Poland on a long-term deal. Josef admits that the infrastructure and buildings are not as good as Korea's, but he assures him that he is going to have much more power. This immediately catches Suk's attention because he finally realizes that even with the corpses that are scattered all over, the dude still has the power to casually offer limousines that serve champagne. Josef says that he is aware that in Korea, Suk has many restrictions holding back his actions, all thanks to public image management. Josef shamelessly tells Suk that if he works with Poland, he is going to get everything he wants from women to have fun with, or people to just beat to death when he feels like it. These words only make Suk angrier, and he even gets the urge to punch him. Shortly afterward, he arrives at the lodging that was provided for him, which is considered to be good, but Suk sees it as a cheap neighborhood hotel. Suk then notices that there are cups of instant dishes on the table, which are supposed to be his food. Suk grabs one of them, and he is checking it out when Soo-young shows up in the most exciting way to present herself to ask Suk if he can use his bathroom because the one in her room is bad. Suk allows her, claiming that it is on the basis of acquaintance. However, he tells Soo-young that he has a question for her. He asks her why all the food supplies in the lodgings are Korean-made, and she replies that it is because of the Korean government's policy. She says that the other countries have a strict policy to import resources produced in Korea. And this is after Korea has consumed much of the imported resources domestically. Suk expresses his surprise that the other countries are actually cooperating with this without throwing tantrum. Soo-young lets him know that getting on the Korean government's bad side means that they can't ask for cooperation from their hunters. Since visas will not be issued without government approval, it is now basically a world where farming and mining can't be done without the protection of hunters. Since they are all looking to survive, they have no choice but to comply even if Korea makes a ridiculous demand of them. Soo-young says the supplies all end up inferior because it has gone from Europe to Korea and then back to Europe. Examples of these are low-grade meat and sprouted potato. Suk then asks her about the condition of the relief supplies that they are supposed to distribute to the region. Soo-young says the relief supplies that are being transported are recycled compound powder number 65. It is basically food waste that has been dried at temperatures over 390 degrees, then ground up. She explains that the number 65 means it has 65% recycled organic water. Soo-young then says she is pretty sure that Korea can send better supplies, but has no idea why they would send trash instead. Suk lets her know that if they do this, it won't reach the people who actually need it. Suk asks her who she thinks will end up taking all the good supplies if Korea sends them. Suk knows that the food will most likely end up with the warlords and they might just enjoy it alone or even sell the food to buy weapons. They are not worried about this since it is now a world where they can get away with it. After seeing everything firsthand, Suk finally understands Seon's words that he would realize a lot of things after he travels overseas. Suk realizes that he was thinking too complacently and as it stands, it appears that his world is more rotten than the world he was transported to. With everything that is going on, Suk finally knows where he is supposed to stand and he crushes the cup of noodles in his hand in anger. Using that anger, he moves closer to Soo-young to ask her where the closest uncooperative warlord is. And later on, Suk finds himself in Hamburg. Upon arriving at Hamburg, he goes over to where the German warlord, Daniel Lewis, resides. He starts beating up those loyal to Daniel and when Daniel hears the noise of chaos in the distance, he asks his assistant what the issue is. He replies that they are under attack from a Korean dude who is beating everyone up to ask why they are not cooperating with the train's operation. Sensing that Suk is not going to stop until he gets his attention, Daniel steps out and tells Suk to stop, while threatening to send a formal request to the Korean Hunter Association if he lays even another hand on them. Suk takes a look at him before punching the dude he is holding really hard to dare Daniel. Daniel yells at him in anger, asking Suk if he wants to die. 3 hours earlier, Suk had gone to Seon's office to see her. Suk reveals the truth that the descendants of Dangun are trying to control the corrosion rifts. And this shocks Suk. Suk says this was what he heard from one of their members that he faced and seeing the conviction on Suk's face, Seon realizes that he has finally made up his mind on which side he is supposed to join. Suk mentions that there is no chance he is getting along with the descendants of Dangun, and Seon admits that she is glad that Suk has made the right decision. Just then, Seon is informed that Sanga is there to. Since Sanga and Suk both carried out a request in Tsushima, Seon believes that she is there for the same thing Suk came to her for. When Sanga enters the room, she mentions that she didn't know that the situation in Poland was worse until she saw it with her own eyes. Sanga asks Seon if South Korea is not aware of the living conditions of the other countries. And Seon lets her know this is not the case. Sanga admits that she never would have known what was going on if she were not a hunter. Sanga expresses her sadness while asking if there is something they can do about the situation. But Seon cuts in, saying there is nothing that can be done because it is not their job. She suggests that Suk and Sanga focus on what is currently in front of them because they still have a lot to handle. However, Suk lets Seon know that there is something he needs to get off his chest. Suk tells Seon of his plan to directly negotiate with the German warlord in his own way. Seon says she is curious about his way of doing things, and Suk casually replies that he wants to force the warlords to cooperate with Ford since the Korean hunters can't do that because of public image. Suk tells Seon that he is ready to take up the responsibility since he is a freelance hunter. Suk tells Seon that he is going to head to Germany to resolve the issue, while the rest of the team stays in Poland. Seon knows that Suk's method is extreme, but at the same time, she knows that there is no other way around it. She asks Suk if he will be fine all by himself, and Suk turns around to leave, assuring Seon that he will have it resolved before the distribution of relief supplies in Poland is over. When Sanga offers to go with him because it might be dangerous, Suk tells her to sit tight and train while he's away, because he is going to scold her if he returns and there is no improvement whatsoever. Now that Suk is in Germany, Daniel had thought they could overwhelm Suk with their numbers because there is a limit to the mana a person can draw out. And even though it was a reasonable idea, they were going up against Suk, who is no ordinary hunter. Right before his eyes, he sees his men get beaten up like trash, and Suk asks him to choose whether to solve the issue through violence or chat. Even with everything he has seen, Daniel still doesn't want to back down, and he tells his men to. He hasn't finished giving the order when Suk appears behind him with a knife to his neck. Daniel freaks out, wondering when Suk got behind. With sweat running down his face, he asks Suk how he plans to deal with the aftermath of what he is doing, but Suk tells him right there and then that he doesn't give a single fudge. Seeing how serious Suk is, Daniel finally agrees to talk. They make their way to the tent, and Suk is served with what is said to be cola. But when he tastes it, it tastes totally different. Daniel tells him that the color is similar to cola, and it is also the easiest to get. While admitting that it has been a long time since he had real cola too. Suk can't believe that things are even worse in Germany than in Poland. They basically live in tents, and they don't even get much electricity. Daniel tells Suk that the military base they're staying at was built in the early stages of the corrosion rift outbreak, and as time passed, state support got even. He lets Suk know that it has gotten even worse than before, so it can't be maintained. Suk then goes straight to the point, asking Daniel why he is not cooperating with the train mission. Daniel says they are currently in a situation where they even need the shield generator more than the UK because of the corrosion rift, Ristorante. Suk remembers that the Ristorante corrosion rift is said to be the biggest one with influences reaching North Africa. Daniel claims that the corrosion zone that the UK is currently facing is nothing compared to theirs because as it stands, they are desperately trying to block the corrosion zone from overwhelming them. Suk then tells him that the shield generator is currently in the experimental stage, and they need a safe place like the UK where they can collect data. He tells him that if he doesn't cooperate, it will even make it harder for him to get it later. Daniel then calls Suk's attention to the fact that he said he wanted to negotiate, but what they have been doing doesn't look like a negotiation. Suk makes sure to assert his dominance, and he tells him to shut up and cooperate, since he has seen how things are. Daniel tries to be stubborn, telling Suk that he has no idea why he is acting all high and mighty because it doesn't seem like he has other option. Suk crushes the cup in his hand to show Daniel that the other option is violence, which is obviously not recommended. Daniel then asks him how he wants them to cooperate, and Suk lets him know that this is not his role to discuss because his job is similar to that of a matchmaker. Daniel asks him if Son is the one who put him up to this, but Suk denies it, saying he just jumped in because he is annoyed at how things were moving. Daniel gets up from his seat and says he was wondering if Son would be so reckless as to do something like that. He tells Suk that he is free to leave, promising to contact Son, but Suk shocks him, revealing that he is staying back. Suk says he is not an idiot who would just take Daniel's words for what they are. Daniel then asks him if he plans to stay with them for free, and Suk whips out a cola-flavored candy, telling Daniel that it is his fee. He reveals that it was a candy he got after working hard to defeat a slime and seeing something he hadn't seen in a while, and tells Daniel that the Koreans really do have it easy because in Germany they don't even know if they're going to survive till the next day. It turns out that Son had asked Suk what he planned to do after the mission, and deep down Suk had made the vow to save the world no matter what he had to do so. As Suk steps out of the tent, he turns around to tell Daniel that he will be thanking him very soon because he will be the one to let people drink real cola in a few years. Meanwhile, at the castle in Warsaw, the citizens stand in line to receive food, but one of them soon raises an issue that the food they are getting is trash when they were already expecting something nice, since the South Korean military was the one coming. The instigator challenges the soldiers, saying they are not different from the government who are toying with them. Since the dude is not ready to back down, one of the soldiers points a shotgun at his chest and shoots him. The dude crashes to the ground, and the crowd freaks out, claiming that the soldiers have killed someone over a trivial matter. However, the soldiers clear up the issue, saying the dude is not dead yet because it is just a salt bullet and not a real one. The soldiers tell the citizens that they are aware of the living conditions, but they let them know that they can't give out large amounts of food if they want everyone to receive their rations. The soldiers let the citizens know that they won't hesitate to use salt bullets on them if they cause another disturbance. The moment the citizens hear this, it dawns on them that the soldiers can't kill them. So this only works in their favor. The whole scenario soon gets really messy with the soldiers requesting backup from the HQ. While in her office, Son goes through the load of reports on her table, and she realizes that they are having a hard time because they don't have enough manpower. Just then, she is informed that they are getting a call from Daniel, and Son excitedly picks up the call, because getting the call alone means Suk succeeded in his plan. Daniel then tells Son over the phone that they are going to accept Janabe's request for cooperation. Soon afterward, Son and her entourage arrived in Germany, and they were welcomed by Daniel, who told Son that she had really sent a strange guy. Meanwhile, Suk is sitting in the distance, watching the meeting between the two groups. Sangha soon joins him there, asking him what he is doing, and Suk replies that he is just scouting the perimeter. Sanga lets him know that Sien is looking for him, and Suk replies that he will go check it out. He is about to leave, when he suddenly gets a weird mana radiation from the clock tower in the distance. He wastes no time leaping toward the tower, and when Sanga asks him where he is, he just tells her that he needs to check something out. He arrives at the tower, and he is surprised not to find anyone there, but he is pretty sure that someone was there. Suk figures out that whoever it was concealed himself with mana to escape, since they knew that he had spotted them. However, he can still feel the traces of mana, so he plans to follow the mana to figure out the person's. Surprisingly, the manor residue leads to the roof, and Suk looks up to invest, while holding his spear with one hand. Suddenly the attacker reveals themselves, cutting through space with the intention of cutting Suk down, but Suk is able to react to block the attack. The attacker turns out to be a cheap samurai dude, Joheim, who is one of the descendants of Dangun. Since Suk has found him, he tells Suk that he would have to kill him. Instead of reacting to the dude's threat, Suk is more concerned about his weapon, which is a sword that has a cane as the handle. Joheim angrily replies that it is a calamus sword, while unleashing a slash powerful enough to cut down the tower. Suk manages to leap backward to dodge the attack, but Joheim closes down in no time. He swings aggressively at Suk, but he manages to dodge them, and when Suk tries to counterattack, all of his strikes miss. Joheim teases Suk, telling him to put more effort into the fight, and Suk soon figures out what he appears to be going on. He stretches his spear to catch the dude off guard, but instead of the spear tearing his head apart, the dude's body split. Joheim reappears somewhere else, while boastfully telling Suk that he will never be able to land a hit on his body. Suddenly, a flash passes through him, and Suk barely blocks the attack. He is able to save his life, but he suffers a cut to the face. Nonetheless, he has been able to figure out two things, and the first is that the dude uses clones, and when the clones merge, his speed and power jump through the roof. The second thing is that Joheim is dead wrong about his conviction that he won't be able to defeat him. As Suk and Joheim stare down, Suk continues to analyze Joheim's skills. Suk notes that Joheim's speed suddenly increased after his divided clones merged, so his speed boost must be an innate ability. However, Suk is more worried about Joheim's phasing technique, which allows attacks to pass. Shortly after, Joheim announces that he will end Suk's life with the next attack. Seeing how confident he is, Suk guesses that no one has ever countered Joheim's phasing. Unfortunately, his luck is about to run out because he just had to go and mess with the. Back in the other world, Suk once went up against creatures with the same ability, and his comrades were at a loss on how to handle the creatures. No matter how many times Suk and his group attacked them, their attacks just passed right through. He tried everything during that battle, but nothing worked because those creatures used mana to displace their physical bodies to another space, making it impossible to be countered. Basically, the phasing skill normally activates at the exact moment its user is attacked, matching the speed of the incoming strike and allowing them to evade unavoidable attacks. Because it responds perfectly to the attacker's movement, overcoming the phasing technique is almost impossible. However, Suk managed to find a loophole within that split second of chaos. He precisely regulated the speed of his strike before Joheim could react, by perfectly matching the timing required to exploit the skill's activation window. Suk slipped through and drove his spear into Joheim before the phasing technique could fully take effect. Joheim is left utterly stunned, and as he clutches his wound his mind races to understand what just happened. He knows exactly how his ultimate skill works and has relied on it countless times to avoid fatal attacks, yet somehow Suk bypassed it as if the skill never existed. What confuses him even more is that at the speed Suk was moving, it should have been impossible for him to reach Joheim's position at that precise moment, no matter how many times he replays the exchange in his head. The outcome makes no sense. Unable to understand how his ultimate technique was countered, Joheim can only stare at Suk in disbelief, and at that moment he wonders just what kind of monster Suk is. However, Suk doesn't give him a moment's rest to figure things out as he immediately launches another attack. Joheim quickly raises his blade, anticipating blocking the attack, but before Suk's strike can land, an explosion erupts nearby, drawing Suk's attention away from the fight. Saved by the explosion, Joheim is relieved, knowing he would have been toast if that explosion hadn't distracted. Just then, Sanga radios Suk, telling him to drop whatever he is doing and immediately return to base. She explains that the situation is extremely bad as sarin gas has been released in the northern outskirts of Hamburg. Suk is stunned to hear this, because sarin gas is extremely dangerous. It is a lethal poison that paralyzes the nervous system even in extremely minute amounts. Sarin gas is recorded as a forbidden weapon worldwide in the history of war and terrorism. Once this gas spreads, the whole affected area becomes a literal hell on earth. Meanwhile, Suk quickly glances backward and notices that Joheim is long gone, so he hurries back to check on his team. On his way back, Suk ponders the lethal gas attack and wonders why they didn't directly strike Hamburg. He finds this strange and feels the terrorist group might have other hidden motives behind the attack. Suk learns from Sanga that the sarin gas will cover Hamburg in 15 minutes. Apparently the South Korean military calculated this using the impact site, wind direction, and speed. To avoid the relief supplies getting contaminated with the lethal gas, Sanga informs Suk that the train will depart for the Netherlands in 5 minutes. Suk then asks whether there are no other enemies, and Sanga replies that there's just one, but Seon is holding him off. Just then, Suk finally realizes the enemy's plan, and when asked what it is, Suk explains that they're trying to separate Seon from the train. This is because without her, capturing the train would be much easier. Suk then asks who Seon is fighting and learns from Sanga that it is the same cloaked archer they saw in Tsushima. Soon, the city begins to fall into utter chaos, causing everyone to panic while Suk quietly watches the hopeless situation. Elsewhere, Seon is under major fire from the skilled archers from the descendants of Dangun. Despite being known as one of the most powerful, Seon still struggles against this very skilled archer. She manages to dodge attack after attack, but, as another powerful strike heads her way, Seon finds herself at a loss and running out. However, she refuses to back down and prepares to stop the attack with every single strength she can muster. As explosion after explosion erupts all around the station, one of the hunters announces that the relief supplies have been fully loaded on the train. Hearing this, all the other hunters hurry to get on the train as it prepares to leave the station. As it is announced on the intercom that all personnel are confirmed to be on board, the leader orders the train to depart. The train immediately begins to leave the station while those inside stare out the window in shock as explosions continue to erupt everywhere. Some hunters who witnessed Seon's fight wonder who the archer she was fighting with was. They noticed that Seon seemed to be getting overwhelmed by the archer and couldn't help but wonder whether she was losing to him. Suddenly, a scratch from the top of the train draws the hunters' attention. As they turn around wondering what it is, Suk suddenly pops out from the top panel saying he barely made it on the train. Everyone is surprised to see him, but Suk ignores their awe and asks what they are doing. Confused, one of the hunters asks what he means and Suk reminds them that there is no room for relaxing. He points out that Seon isn't fighting such a fierce battle just so they can relax and do nothing. He also tells them that something bad is bound to happen soon now that the enemy has separated Seon from the train. The doc then climbs back out and orders them to come up with him as they need to prepare for the worst. Instead of following Suk immediately, silence follows as the hunters remain in the same spot, thinking about whether to listen to some rookie. After a brief moment, one of them communicates to the other hunters scattered on the train, telling them to head to the shield generator according to Suk's directives. Back in the station, Seon is still battling against the powerful archer. She notes that the archer is incredibly skilled and wonders whether he is the leader of the descendants of Dangun. The archer finally speaks to her, commending Seon for her impressive skills as a 10th-ranked hunter. He claims to be impressed that Seon managed to block all his attacks so far. Smiling, Seon sarcastically apologizes for ruining whatever he had planned out. However, the archer tells her not to worry since the plan was to separate her from the train. He claims that their victory was already decided the moment the train left without Seon. Elsewhere, a ton of members from the descendants of Dangun gather for the second phase of their plan. Leading the charge is Hyan, the dude who previously trapped Seon in a shield along with a female member named Yeonju. Shortly after, Suk receives information that a suspicious group has been spotted on the bridge ahead. As the members of the descendants of Dangun prepare to ambush the train, Suk orders all hunters to prepare for battle. Seconds later, Yeonju, Hyan, and their team jump on the train as it passes over the bridge. The moment the intruders land, a fierce battle begins between the two groups as Suk's team of hunters fights to protect the shield generator. Meanwhile, Yeonju calmly greets Suk as if she's been expecting to meet him for a long time. Suk is surprised and wonders how the stranger knows him, so he asks Yeonju whether she knows him. Yeonju replies that she does, and reveals that her superiors ordered her to capture Suk alive. However, she refuses to obey them, claiming that she's not exactly cut out for taking prisoners. Besides, since her superiors are not here to supervise, Yeonju confidently boasts that she plans to eliminate Suk and chalk it up to an accident, therefore no one will hold her responsible for not capturing him alive as ordered. After mouthing off like the classic villain, Yeonju proudly shows off her weapon of choice, the gyeojeum, a traditional Korean musical instrument. Suk is surprised by Yeonju's weapon of choice, but is definitely not impressed or moved. Yeonju then begins to play the gyeojeum, attacking Suk with the sound waves. Suk quickly blocks his ears as he complains that her skill is quite annoying. However, he doesn't rate it if that is all she has to offer. Suddenly, another pesky fly, Hyun, begins to dance and recite chants while shaking copper bells and a blade. This is a classic dance performed by Korean shamans during a ritual. Hyun continues to perform his shamanic ritual, aiming the spells against Suk while Yeonju backs him up, plucking the strings of her gyeojeum. Suk notes that Hyun's dance isn't an ordinary ritual, but a buff skill for Yeonju's sound waves. Just then, the shock wave from their combined attack explodes from Suk's side of the carriage all the way to Sanga's side. Sanga immediately turns around as she realizes it's coming from Suk's side. She fears that Suk might be severely injured if the shock wave is loud enough to be heard all the way to her side. Just as Sanga thought, Suk is bleeding from every opening while clutching his ears due to the shock wave from the combined attack. However, this doesn't affect him one bit as he grins mischievously, telling Yeonju that her music is absolutely trash. But Yeonju is proud of herself as she tells Suk that he can never block out her sound. Feeling very smug, she says that Suk is going to die, no matter how much he struggles. Suk chuckles at her stupidity, and as black flames begin to emerge from his body, Suk prepares to show Yeonju what real skill looks. A second later, that little black flame explodes into a huge one as Suk unleashes his paradox flame. Yeonju is confused as she wonders what type of trick Suk has up his sleeve. Not wanting to risk it, she tries to tell Hyun to prepare for the next attack. However, at that moment, Yeonju shockingly realizes that she cannot make any sound. Confused, she checks her mouth just to make sure the opening is still present. Meanwhile, Hyun is also experiencing the same thing as he realizes that his voice isn't coming out, no matter how much he screams. However, Suk is not surprised that they can't adapt to a silent battlefield. Suk then suddenly vanishes right before Yeonju's eyes, leaving her wondering where he went. She can't believe that Suk has so many tricks up his sleeve, and despite being in a dangerous situation, Yeonju still has the nerve to mock Suk's little trick. For some reason, Yeonju delusionally believes that Suk is at a disadvantage no matter what he does since the battle is still 2 against 1. According to Yeonju, even if Suk manages to land a sneaky attack on Hyun, she can just take him out, or vice versa. Apparently, Hyun and Yeonju already agreed that one of them must risk death just to capture Suk. Things do not seem to be going according to plan as Yeonju notices that Hyun looks a bit out of it, yet disconnected. It then suddenly dawns on her that she might be the one getting ambushed, and not Hyun. Unfortunately, by the time she figures this out, Suk has already appeared behind Yeonju as he prepares to strike her before she can react. Speaking about Yeonju and Hyun's plan before they started this fight, they agreed that it's fine for one of them to die, but at the last minute, Hyun changed the plan, which is why Yeonju was confused for a moment. Just as Suk is about to strike Yeonju, Hyun yells for him to stop, and Suk is immediately surrounded by talismans, trapping him in a barrier. It turns out Hyun was preparing this all along because he didn't want to sacrifice Yeonju or himself as planned. Yeonju, who is now badly wounded, questions why Hyun didn't follow the plan. Hearing Yeonju call Hyun's name, Suk finally put a name to the dude whom he always just calls the squinty-eyed guy. Seconds after the barrier is deployed, Suk's paradox flame tears through it like paper. While Hyun is still trying to fortify the spell, Yeonju then scolds Hyun for not listening to her because the plan was to subdue Suk before using the barrier to seal him. Hyun, whose eyes are still closed and who doesn't even know that his seal has long been broken, tells Yeonju that he didn't have any other choice. Not knowing he has failed, Hyun leaps for joy in his heart, thinking he has trapped Suk. After all, his barrier was able to stop powerful officers of the descendants of Dangun and even the powerful Son. Hyun believes that this same seal should be more than enough to restrain a common rookie. Believing Suk has been sealed, Hyun squints his eyes a little and is about to start planning how to recover the shield generator when he sees a silhouette of Suk without any barrier trapping him. He only squinted a little before closing his eyes, so he isn't sure if what he saw is real. After all, it shouldn't be possible for anyone to break out so soon, so Hyun wonders if he was just deciding to put that aside. He asks Yeonju to stand up, telling her that they need to grab the shield generator and retreat. But before he can finish his sentence, Suk stabs Hyun in the abdomen with his spear. Hyun is confused as he tries to figure out how Suk broke through his seal so quickly. With a cold, terrifying expression on his face, Suk demands to know who gave them permission to leave and asks whether Hyun is out of his mind. It is at this very moment that Hyun knew he had messed up, especially knowing that Suk's power surpasses his imagination. Terrified, he decides that the shield generator is no longer the priority, but leaving the train alive is what they need most. As the realization hits him, Hyun shouts at Yeonju, telling her to run. Like a predator who knows that his prey is helpless, Suk taunts Hyun's words, telling Yeonju to try to run. Twisting the spear further, Suk tells Hyun to also try to run away with Yeonju. He tells them to leave the shield generator behind and try to escape, as if taunting them to test his limits. Meanwhile, back at Hamburg Central Station, Seon is still battling the archer, despite clearly looking exhausted. Suddenly, the archer decides to call it a day, leaving Seon. He then praises her, saying that Sein's existence is proof that Korea is a superior race. Surprised to hear this, Sein realizes that his words sound like the Wanguk theory. So she asks the archer whether he believes in such a nonsensical theory. Basically, the Wanguk theory is just a fantasy theory claimed by pseudo-history believers. They believe that Wanguk ruled over all of Eurasia around 60,000 BC. They also believe that submarines and telephones were developed and used during that period. Apparently, the descendants of Dangun use this Wanguk theory to rally forces behind them, and this is a well-known fact even outside Korea. The archer then tells Sein that he doesn't believe that garbage and only lunatics would believe it, so Sein asks why he sounds like he's a believer, and the archer lets her know that it doesn't matter what he believes in, as long as the people who follow him blindly believe it. And because they believe such trash, the archer is certain that they will help him achieve his grand dream. Meanwhile, back on the train, Hyun uses his blade to swipe Suk's spear out of his body, chopping off his own skin in the process. This is one of the lunatics the archer is banking on for his so-called grand dreams. The archer then tells Sein that faith doesn't require proof, and one just has to believe blindly. After his long preaching session, the archer then vanishes right before Sein's eyes. As everything around her goes quiet, Sein leans on her greatsword and heaves a heavy sigh of relief. Back on the train, Suk is busy thinking about Hyun, and can't believe the dude cut off his own flesh just to escape. However, with such a fatal wound, Suk doubts that Hyun can run far. Just as he begins to wonder whether to go after them, one of the hunters inside the train radios in with a message. According to him, they lost contact with Sein, so in her absence, the provisional command is to be transferred to Suk. While Suk is listening to the directive, a bunch of masked members from the descendants of Dangun leap forward to attack Suk, but before they can land a single blow, Suk swiftly knocks them out with his fist and takes down the others with a blade. After handling all the remaining pests outside the train, Suk takes charge as the temporary commander of the train. He radios into all personnel, ordering the train to depart immediately. At first, Sein's subordinates from Janabi insisted on waiting for Sein to catch up before they depart. However, Suk refused to stop the train, and even though he knew this might cause them to hate him, Suk didn't regret making that choice. Apparently, he did this because the train is loaded with relief supplies needed urgently elsewhere. A few hours after they arrive at their destination, Suk can't stop worrying about Sein's safety and hopes she comes back in one piece. However, after a while, with no news of her, he begins to wonder whether she's actually dead. But the next moment, a hunter rushes in, frantically calling Suk's name. Suk asks him what is going on, and the dude who is out of breath manages to tell Suk that Sein has returned. Suk is happy to hear this, and claims he already knew that Sein couldn't possibly die from a situation like that. Shortly after, Suk goes to visit Sein in the clinic where she's receiving treatment for her injuries. He teases her, asking if she's offended that they left without her, but Sein answers that she's not. In fact, she says she gave Suk provisional command, knowing he would make the best. Sein then confides in Suk that she has been thinking about her fight with the archer guy, but she can't see a path where she defeats him. Sein explains that she would have probably returned in a body bag if the archer hadn't gone easy on her. Sein then asks Suk for advice on what to do because she feels powerless for not being able to even step on the archer's shadow. Suk then comforts Sein, telling her that sudden enlightenment doesn't actually exist, meaning it would take a little effort and time for her to find a path. Sein is relieved to hear this, and it immediately lifts her. She then asks Suk about the distribution of the relief supplies, and Suk informs her that it is proceeding smoothly, but the next moment, Suk smiles mischievously, saying that things are going smoothly in his own way. This makes Sein a bit uneasy, knowing that Suk's way is never the smooth way, so she asks him again whether things are really going smoothly. Suk then tells Sein that the relief supplies for the United Kingdom will soon be loaded, and the shield generator will be transported as well. He reminds her to make sure to take them all with her. Hearing this, Sein wonders whether Suk is staying in the UK. Suk says he plans to, since the descendants of Dangun won't easily give up on the shield generator. Sein wants to know whether Suk has a concrete plan to hand. Suk simply lets her know that he'll stay in the UK for the time being and improve his skills. Then, on his way back to Korea, he plans to challenge Brodsk's Grade 1 Rift. Sein is surprised to hear this, and can't believe Suk easily decided to challenge a Grade 1 Rift. Sein says that even her own first Grade 1 Corrosion Rift subjugation was insanely difficult to handle. He also warns him that handling a Grade 1 Rift alone will be tough, but Suk reveals that he will not be going alone. He already talked to Sangha, and she agreed to follow. Sein calls Suk and Sangha crazy loons because she believes that the difficulty will be the same whether Suk goes alone or as a duo with Sangha. After considering it for a moment, Sein announces that she will also stay back and help them as much as she can, even though Brodsk's refrigerator rift is said to be weaker than other Grade 1 rifts. Sien fears it is still difficult since it has been classified as grade 1. Sien then reminds Suk about his boast to destroy every corrosion rift on Earth and save the world. She hopes he can still keep that level of enthusiasm after experiencing the grade 1 rift in Bratsk. Suk simply smiles in response, telling Sien that he needs one favor from her. A few days after arriving in the UK, Suk manages to snag a decent accommodation for training. Apparently, it was given to him on the condition of protecting. However, Sangha feels the house is too far away from where the shield generator is. Suk says he can't help it since the remote areas have more decent accommodations. Since their mission is to respond when problems arise, he tells Sangha that it's fine, as long as they check in via radio every hour as stipulated in the. Hearing all these reasons, Sangha decides to stop fussing. Suk then asks her what they talked about, and Sangha pulls out a small bag filled with a couple of vials of elixir. She lets him know that the supply is a bit scarce these days, but Suk assures her that the amount she brought is enough. Without wasting any time, Suk opens the caps on all the vials and loads them into his mouth at the same time. Seeing how crude he is, Sangha asks if Suk really has to drink them that way. Suk then explains that it'll be even more bitter drinking them one by one. After chugging down the elixirs, Suk prepares to train Sangha. Sangha is confused that Suk plans to use eggs for the training, but Suk lets her know that eggs are an intuitive tool for learning. To demonstrate, he picks up an egg in his left hand and another in his right. He channels mana into the egg in his right hand, after which he breaks both eggs, pouring their contents into a plate. To her surprise, Sangha notices that the egg yolk and white got mixed in the mana-infused egg, while the other remained separated. Suk then asks whether Sangha understands what he's trying to show her, and Sangha replies that this is training to master mana manipulation. Suk is impressed that Sangha understood the concept right away, and explains that the training is because she lacks mana control. He then tells Sangha that practicing this way will help her, and she can practice it during her free time. After Suk's lecture, Sangha immediately prepares to practice the egg method, but Suk stops her. He then reminds her that she's supposed to practice it in her free time as a sort of homework. Sangha is confused as she wonders about her actual training. Just then, Sien arrives, and as she slams her sword into the ground, she proudly declares that training starts with real. She then asks if they're ready, but Sangha is shocked as the realization hits her that she's supposed to fight Sien as part of her real training. Sangha is still speechless when Suk answers for her, telling Sien that they're ready. Elsewhere, in an eerie lab, a mad scientist hums while Ji-yeon lies down, strapped to a cold table with tubes connected. He soon regains consciousness, and the doctor checks on him before returning to continue tinkering in the lab. Ji-yeon sluggishly asks where he is, and the dude explains that Ji-yeon is in his laboratory. He complains that he had a hard time moving Ji-yeon here from the hospital. Ji-yeon is surprised to hear this and asks why the men moved him. After a brief silence, he explains that he did it since Ji-yeon is half dead, and might be bored staring at the hospital ceiling all day, unable. It is soon revealed that the mad scientist is actually Jian-woo, also a member of the descendants of Dan-gun. Terrified, Ji-yeon tries to threaten him, but Jian-woo simply laughs, reminding Ji-yeon that he can't even breathe on his own without a mana. Jian-woo then advises him not to overexert himself, and reminds Ji-yeon that his anger should not be directed towards him. Jian-woo then reveals that he recently succeeded in a little experiment, meaning he wants Ji-yeon to be the test subject. Looking at him mischievously, Jian-woo asks whether Ji-yeon doesn't want to get. However, Ji-yeon is terrified as the realization finally hits him of what Jian-woo plans to do. Back in the UK, Suk and Sang-jae are engaged in a fierce 2-on-1 sparring session again. The training has two objectives, and one of them is for Sang-jae and Suk to get stronger but from how Sang-jae is getting thrashed by Sien, she doesn't seem to be getting anywhere. Sang-jae tries to strike Sien, but before she can even swing her sword, Sien takes her by surprise. However, as Sien is about to land a hit, Suk somehow uses his spear to grab her sword. This takes Sien by surprise, as she was not expecting it. While making sure that Sien's greatsword is trapped, Suk urges Sang-jae to land a hit on Sien. Speaking about the two objectives of their training, the second objective is to improve the teamwork between Sang-jae. Following Suk's push to land a hit on Sien, Sang-jae activates her electrokinesis skill as she leaps forward to Sien. However, Sien blocks the attack and even manages to grab Sang-jae's sword, sneaking up behind. Sang-jae didn't expect Sien to disarm her, but Sien commends her for improving over the past month. However, she promises to teach Sang-jae how to retain her weapon and not lose it to an opponent. Sien is about to move on to the next part of the training when a distress call comes through. Sien is informed that the base has been attacked by descendants of Dan-gun, and an unknown black smoke has completely surrounded the shield generator. Suk and the others immediately prepare to depart as the caller requests immediate backup. A few moments later, their car zooms wildly on the road thanks to Sang-jae's not-so-amazing driving skill. Sien and Suk hold on for dear life, especially Suk, who has experienced this before. Suk wonders why Sang-jae is driving again, but Sang-jae reminds him she's the only one with a driver. Seon begs her to drive a bit more safely, but before she can get a response, Seon senses a presence. Suddenly, an ugly purple creature with tubes strapped to its back appears in front of their car. Before they can react, Sang-jae rams into the creature, derailing them a bit and shattering. After the car comes to a halt, Sang-jae wonders whether she hit an actual person. However, Suk, who has already peeked out the window, informs her that she did not. Suk doesn't think the purple monstrosity before him is human. Seconds later, the bulked-up purple dude stands back up, saying it found what it's been searching for. Suk observes the guy closely, and it finally hits him when he realizes that the creature is actually Ji-yeon, whom he previously crippled. Ji-yeon then calls out Suk's name, saying that Suk could never understand how much he had sacrificed just to find a wretch like him. Ji-yeon 2.0 immediately lunges forward toward Suk, determined to get his revenge. He destroys a nearby building, hoping to crush Suk, but to his surprise, Suk comes out unscathed, making Ji-yeon realize that such a trivial attack could never take down Suk. Meanwhile, as Suk prepares for the fight, he wonders how Ji-yeon is moving despite getting his muscle strength burned away by Suk's paradox flame, and though not part of their plan, Suk decides to handle things here while Seon and Sang-jae handle things at the base. Seon then tells Sang-jae to split up and head to the harbor while she goes straight to HQ. Before leaving, Seon tells Suk that Ji-yeon seems very pissed with him, so she advises him to make sure to finish Ji-yeon this time. While leaving, she tells Sang-jae to run to the harbor since the car is wrecked. During the girls' leave, Ji-yeon mocks Seon for running away like a coward and vows to hunt every one of them down, starting with his arch-nemesis, Suk. However, Suk simply laughs at Ji-yeon's stupidity, telling him that someone whose power is on the level of a local Incheon Batman could never kill him. But Ji-yeon is not offended by Suk's dry jokes and calls it pathetic, as he explains that he swore to inflict the exact same pain from the moment Suk crippled him. Instead of just ending this pathetic villain monologue after that declaration, Ji-yeon continues to mouth off, explaining how he plans to tear Suk. Afterwards, he charges towards Suk to put his power where his mouth is. Suk, on the other hand, admits that this whole situation might actually be a bit dangerous. Meanwhile, Sang-jae soon arrives at the harbor only to find all the hunters. While she's scanning the area, someone quietly watches her from a distance, and a few minutes later they leap forward, causing such a ruckus just to make an entrance. One of the intruders is a masked descendant of Dangun member. The dude immediately recognizes Sang-jae as the daughter of the KY group, and it turns out that he came with two other brute minions, who look forward to getting a hefty ransom from Sang-jae's family. Sang-jae stays alert as she wonders whether the three dudes took out the hunters at the harbor by themselves. As if buying time, Sang-jae humors them by correcting their grammar of calling her little lady daughter. She explains that putting daughter and lady at the same time like that makes it sound awkward. Sang-jae advises them to simply call her the KY group daughter, or the KY group beat should be fine. The masked dudes are confused as they wonder whether she has a few screws loose. After a brief silence, they burst into laughter, calling Sang-jae a village idiot. Meanwhile, Sang-jae tries to understand what part of her gives idiot vibes. Thinking Sang-jae's IQ might be too low to get a good amount from the ransom, the masked men charge toward her, saying they will take their time playing with Sang-jae for a bit. With Sang-jae facing the attacking trio, she is worried because they all have twice as much mana. However, she remembers Suk's words, telling her that in actual battle, the amount of mana isn't what is important, but the composure to read the flow of battle. With this in mind, Sang-jae decides to stay calm, thinking of holding out until Suk gets to her. It turns out that Ji-hyunwoo had injected a purple crystal into Ji-hyun's body, telling him that it would substantially increase his strength, while giving him a considerable amount of mana, so he won't have to rely on a respirator anymore. However, there are side effects to this, and it is not the regular side effects. He tells Ji-hyun that his bones will shatter and his internal organs will twist, while his eyes dry out as if they are burning. However, Ji-hyunwoo doesn't think he has to worry about this because it is just a small price to pay for gaining a new body. Ji-hyun panicked when he heard this, and Ji-hyunwoo berated him for fearing such a painful procedure more than living the rest of his life as a. Ji-hyunwoo injects the substance into his body, while telling him that he is giving him a. Ji-hyunwoo tells him that he is getting the best opportunity to get back at Suk for turning him into trash. Ji-hyun screams in pain as the substance takes effect in his body slowly turns purple, while his veins bulge out, and in that moment of pain, Ji-hyun sets his eyes on killing Suk. Now that he is facing Suk, he is putting his all into the battle. He delivers fast-paced punches to Suk's body, but Suk manages to block the attacks from reaching any vital part of his body. Just then, Suk takes control by blocking Ji-hyun's attack with his spear before pushing the spear to the ground to use the force exerted from this to launch Ji-hyun. Ji-hun is pissed that he is in the air and can't do anything, but he promises himself that by the time he returns to the ground, he is going to finish Suk off. Suddenly he notices that Suk is onto something, and by standing on his spear, Suk launches himself way over Ji-hun. Ji-hun watches in horror as he never expected Suk's spear to be able to extend that much. With Ji-hun completely defenseless, Suk commends him, telling him that his punches actually hit harder than before, but he is more interested in seeing if his durability is as strong as his combat power. Ji-hun wonders what Suk means by this, and Suk answers his curiosity by unleashing the dual-orbit spear technique to deliver an overwhelming force from his spear, which ultimately one-shots Ji-hun. Ji-hun is sent flying into the distance, and he crashes into a wall, missing a few limbs in the process. Ji-hun coughs up blood while wondering if the power he was given wasn't even enough to deal with Suk. He begs to be killed, but Suk is staring at him, trying to understand what is happening. He can clearly see that mana is flowing through Ji-hun's body instead of blood. Apparently, something like this would require dozens of mages to produce in the other world. Suk is surprised that they didn't also remove the impurities in such a sensitive procedure. Since Suk has lived in a world that devoted thousands of years to mana research, Suk can see that humanity's knowledge about mana is not that high. In fact, they are closer to primitive cavemen who just discovered fire. To make it worse, such a primitive man got his hands on a kitchen knife and is using the dull side to cut meat. Even though the descendants of Dangun might believe that they invented this on their own, Suk has seen more than enough to know that it is nothing more than a landmine that was intentionally planted by some entity. Suk can categorically say that what he is looking at is not the work of humans, but he wonders how Ji-hun was able to make the contract. In the other world, if a powerful entity extracts its own mana and materializes it for someone to accept it into their body, they are essentially agreeing to a transaction. Suk thought it was a small issue before, but with all he's seen, he realizes that Ji-hun had eaten. Suk is about to start interrogating him when the crystal bulging out on his head glows brightly before releasing a massive explosion. Suk is able to protect himself from the explosion, but when the dust settles, he realizes that the explosion was meant to clear off any evidence. It turns out that Suk has seen this form of contract before in the other world. It is basically a contract with a being known as the Devil, and even though he doesn't know the entity that Ji-hun had contracted with, he is pretty sure that the entity is incredibly powerful. Suk is worried that there are now devils on Earth after he did his best to wipe them out in the other world. Just then, he sees the lightning action in the distance, and realizes that Sangha is engaging in combat. He decides to forget about Ji-hun's issue in the meantime while checking on Sangha. Meanwhile, at the harbor, Sangha has already defeated the trio, but even she doesn't want to believe that she did it. All she did was deflect their attacks, but she was able to defeat them somehow. She smiles because Suk had told her she would win, and she did exactly that. The leader of the three is still alive, and he is trying to make a run for it, but Sangha mercilessly cuts him down. Suk is pleased with how far she's come because she didn't even use too much mana in the fight by making sure she only produced the right outcome for the fight. She is wondering if she did everything right when Suk appears out of nowhere to tell her that she did everything right, but he tells her that she overthinks things too much. He tells her that whenever she is fighting, all she has to do is focus on the fight. Sangha is shocked to see Suk, and she asks him how long he's been watching. Suk replies that he just got there, and Sangha cannot believe that he didn't even watch the whole fight, but is already nagging. After putting their usual bickering aside, Suk turns to the giant wave equipment beside them, asking Sangha if what he is looking at is the famous shield generator.